exactly on time, and I apologize. So now we will all do the Pledge of Allegiance, and for those who are able and willing, please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag The mission of the City School District of Albany is that we will work in partnership with our diverse community to engage every learner in a robust educational program designed to provide the knowledge and skills necessary for success. Mrs. Adams.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, community members. Thank you for being here tonight. I would like to begin my report with a heartfelt thank you to all of our community members who came out to vote on Tuesday. We had more than 70% of our voters say yes to our 2018-2019 budget proposal. That is the third time in 4 years that our community has supported the budget at such a high level. The strong support of our new Capital Reserve Fund was also greatly appreciated. I would also like to extend my congratulations to the 3 individuals who were successful in our Board of Education elections on Tuesday. Current member Ellen Roche and also Tabitha Wilson, and the newest, congratulations. And the newest member, Damaris Alexander Mann. So congratulations to these 3 ladies. They will officially be sworn in to their terms on July 2nd. We've had a very busy schedule of community engagement meetings over the last several weeks. This included 9 community budget presentations, 2 forums on our middle school configuration planning process, which we will talk more about later tonight. I would also like to thank everyone who joined us at these meetings, as well as our dedicated staff members who go above and beyond to engage our families and community members in these important discussions. This will continue to be a critical part of our work at the district and school levels as we plan for the future. I would also like to recognize 2 of our outstanding community partners for the opportunities that they have provided to our students and families over the last weekend. On Saturday, 19 of our middle school students participated in the BCDI STEM Day at RPI in Troy. This event exposed our students to a variety of workshops and allowed them to begin to explore their interest in computers, engineering, physics, and other STEM-related fields. I wish to thank Barry Walston, the president of BCDI Institute, the Albany affiliate, for his continued partnership in making these opportunities available to our students. Also on Saturday, 3 Albany High School students presented their research at Albany Medical Center as a part of the college's Science and Technology Entry Program, also known as STEP. Themba Patirse, Mustafa Muhi, and Israel Washington presented research entitled Urban Green Spaces, Community Gardens and Health, the potential benefits of transforming vacant lots in Albany's South End. The STEP program provides academic enrichment, mentoring, and opportunities for service learning. Saturday's research presentation was not only a great opportunity for our students, but potentially for our community as we look to actualize our students' research. This is extremely exciting for those 3 students. A talented group of Albany High students will be getting the red carpet treatment at Proctor's Theater in Schenectady this Saturday night. It is the 2nd annual High School Musical Awards, and Albany High's production of Hairspray has been nominated in 6 categories. Annabelle Duffy was nominated in the Best Actress category for her performance in the lead role of Tracy Turnbull. Other nominations for the Albany High Theater Ensemble were Best Musical, Best Choreography Execution, Best Ensemble Chorus, Best Set Construction, and Best Technical Production. As they say in the business, break a leg. Earlier this month, the Albany High School Theater Ensemble presented the play Black Boy. This dramatic play was written by Albany High School students Camille Dobbs, Jacqueline Flynn, Thea Flower, Sion Hardy, Jaden Hares, Zion Ann Hudson, Zanif Washington, and Emmanuel Williams. The play was directed by City School District of Albany teacher assistant Gregory Theodore Marsh. Black Boy illustrated what it means to be an African American male in America as told through the eyes of the protagonist, Treasure Johnson, as he grows and matures, yet struggles to find his own voice. I want to express my sincere gratitude to Ward Dales for his support and leadership of our Albany High School Theater Ensemble. We have several guests joining us tonight, but before I make those introductions, a quick reminder that all of our schools and offices will be closed Monday, May 28th in observance of Memorial Day. I would like to introduce, and if you'll please stand when I call your name, two teachers who have earned the gold standard of their profession, National Board Certification. Christine Rizzo, a reading teacher at Hackett Middle School, and Kelly Tomey, a special education teacher at Phillips Schuyler Academy. Christine could not be with us this evening, but these ladies have joined the ranks of 25 educators in our school district that have earned this prestigious distinction. This is a very significant achievement, and I would like to congratulate them on earning this high-regarded credential. I'd also like to introduce Jessica Short and Rhea Flos. They are co-team leaders that facilitate the work with the National Board Certification. And ladies, if you will come forward, please, so that you can share a few of your thoughts with us, we would appreciate it.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Short, and I am a National Board teacher, certified teacher, and certified candidate support provider. Myself and Rita Flos work with National Board candidates to support their journey through the process of being nationally board certified. National Board certification is the equivalent of a doctorate degree and is based on national teaching standards and recognized best teaching practices. Teachers self-select to participate in this process because they are driven by the desire to continuously improve their own practice in order to best facilitate learning experiences with their students. Teachers who embark on this journey generally spend hundreds of hours planning learning experiences based on student data and work samples, examining and analyzing work products, increasing their content knowledge through research, observing and analyzing videotapes of their teaching, and reflecting on the impact that their instructional strategies have had on their students. Teacher prep programs, as well as teacher evaluations across the country and other parts of the world, have been modeled off of National Board. In total, our school district has 26 National Board teachers. Tonight, we are here to celebrate the achievement of our newest National Board certified teachers, Christine Rizzo, reading teacher at Hackett, and Kelly Toomey, special ed teacher at SA. Thank you. Do you want to say anything?
No, I wasn't planning on anything, but thank you. It's been a really positive experience. Oh, I'm sorry. It's been a very positive experience, and I couldn't have done it without the help of Rita and Jessica and the support of the district with the planning days and writing days we've had. It's really empowering to have a chance to really be that reflective on your teaching and see the progress the students make. So, thank you.
Thank you so very much. I would like to invite Principal John Powell to tell us more about the great things happening here at Montessori Magnet School. And he has a guest, excuse me, with him tonight, Gabriel O'Valley. So welcome.
I first begin by thanking, move this, all right. So I'd like to begin by thanking each of you for coming to our amazing school. I'm happy to play host tonight, and I'm excited to have truly one of the finest young men you're going to come across here next to me, Mr. Gabe O'Valley. So you decide, would you like to hear from Gabe first or me first? Good choice. All right, so Gabe, the microphone's yours. Okay. So, introduce.
Hi, my name is Gabriel Oval. I am a fourth grade teacher in Miss Ayala's class. I'm a fourth grade teacher in Miss Ayala's class.
So some of the things that you really enjoy about school.
The cooperating, like, it's like a whole group, like a whole family, this whole school, like, we all get along. No fighting, like, we're all friends.
Okay. And you love your teacher?
Mm-hmm.
Who else? Who else is in our building that you also truly love, and everybody understand why when you say it?
Well, like, some of the teachers that I had, like, in pre-K, kindergarten, first and second. My mom that
I was
works
gonna
here.
say. Where is your mom here?
Yes.
Do I want to embarrass her? Say hi, Amy. Wait, if you didn't see the light when the mom thing, all right. All right, so let's, what else do we want to share? So your favorite subject is,
ELA.
but what were you saying about ELA? You really like ELA because,
It's like nice to learn a second language because I'm Hispanic and, well, I'm not that good at Spanish, but
you enjoy the chance to work with two different languages. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. How about some extracurricular after-school other activities that you've been involved with?
I did coding and basketball. I wanted to do two things for STEM, but I couldn't get the chance to because I already had basketball.
So there we go, 5th grade. What do you think that, so what other STEAM activity would you like to do next year? Was there one you were hoping to get into?
Yeah, science is
Oh,
one
the
of
science
them.
one? It'll be there for you. So you covered. Oh, this was a really good part. So you not only stick to your 4th grade friends.
I
What else
have
was
like other friends like in 3rd grade. There's one kid in pre-K who's one of my friends. He's also my neighbor.
Yeah, I like that. And teachers are really nice. Your mom works here. That's a great thing. Any other things you want to share
I would
about?
like to thank the Board of Education of having me here to talk about this school, Montessori.
Yeah, I knew we picked the right guy. So I don't know if you folks have any questions for Gabe, but he's obviously doing a great job. So, great job. Okay. Slide. Yeah. Ugly. Okay. Oh, photo op, sure thing. I'll bring the shine down for you. Okay, so, again, thank you so much for visiting us here at Montessori and giving the chance to talk a little bit about what makes our school so great. I guarantee I will not capture half of what it is that makes this a special place, and anybody who gets to spend any days here knows that it is that. And I really do want to first also thank the teachers who joined us here today from our school. We have a few in the back, including Miss Aiello, Gabe's teacher. Hi, Miss Aiello. She's, having been in education for 20 years, I'm not just saying this, but she really ranks up there as one of the best I've ever had a chance to be around and learn from myself. And so I thank her for just being a great welcoming committee this year for me. So thank you very much. So I'll just jump right in. Seeing a great slide there. Ms. Dixon, first year teacher, very excited as part of a STEAM night that we had here at school. Ms. Turner Greenwood with Elias, enjoying, I think that was an activity during our Black History Month. And then, as you can see, an example of some students working with some of our very important to the craft Montessori materials. I'll kick over to our mission statement. Dedicated to a multiple intelligence approach, our school allows each student to achieve his or her best in a supportive and caring environment. Our approach emphasizes the unique philosophy of Dr. Maria Montessori. And the pictures that you see there capture that. Obviously, there's Maria in the bottom left, but it's students and the giving aspect of things, the connection with their environment, the camaraderie that you experience when you work together, and the self-driven nature of what we do every day. Captured even in pictures taken just this past week during a community service activity at Patroon Land Farm that is owned by the Northeast Regional Food Bank. It's in Voorheesville, and I didn't know that it was there, but our coordinator for our STEAM group, our service learning group, Miss Bruce, she found this opportunity, and about 20 students and their parents went there on Monday, and we planted roughly 4,000 onion seedlings, or whatever state they were currently in, into an interesting mixture of fish business and into the whole. So it was a fun experience, but we needed a good cleanup afterwards, but a great opportunity for students to get out and serve. The demographics of our school, as you can see, we have 328 students as of our most recent count, with a breakdown of 189 to 139 for female, in 14 classrooms, 3 self-contained classrooms, 7 special area teachers. There's a breakdown of our student population, as you can see. Great picture taken in Miss Johnson and Miss Clark's room earlier in the year. As you know, we have, and all of our buildings have SEP plans in place, and the major focus of the SEP plan as it was written for last year really had to do with, of course, improving achievement, but a lot of it was focused on educating families on how we do what we do and why we do it, and how we use what we know about the students through our different assessments. And so our hope is that the community feels like we've done a nice job. We'll be doing some assessment even tomorrow night at the variety show. We'll be kind of using that as an opportunity to assess how folks feel we've done. But what we're trying to do as we go forward is kind of expand it out a little bit, not have it be focused so much on the particular assessments from this past year, but be a bit more responsive to the guidance and words of our families. We've run a focus group this year. We've had our school-wide surveys, and our committee at the building level has had plenty of opportunities to really look at how to be most responsive. And the areas you'll see built into the coming SEP will be about developing student ownership and confidence in their own learning, increasing our use of technology at the classroom level, and then especially as how we communicate with our families. That was a clear message delivered during our focus group, is that families would like to be having the opportunity to communicate and to learn about what's happening at school in a 21st century manner. And so I do have that as an absolute focus for 18-19. We'll mention this a little bit later too, but the increased engagement with PBIS has been quite noted this year, but it's now our job as a PBIS committee to be responsive to the teachers' needs, and so we had even conversation of that today at the faculty meeting, trying to make sure that it fits the needs of the classroom teachers, so there's fewer barriers to engaging with something that I really do believe is a great benefit to our students in our school, and so we'll work to do that. And then I'd say probably the most important, arguably, is the reincorporation of Montessori materials and practices into the daily instruction through alignment and standards. And that really, what I'm saying there is a lot of newness has come to the building and to the teachers of the district over X number of years. And in many cases, especially at the grades 3 through 5 level, you'll see some of the key components of what once was the Montessori classroom have fallen to the wayside or been put into a closet to a degree. And it's really critical, I think, that if we're to, claim and advertise ourselves to be a full Montessori pre-K through 5, that those classrooms, especially at grades 3 through 5, are living the day-to-day Montessori experience, and the students get that. And it's so, anyways, you will see from us in 18-19 a very laid out, detailed approach through mapping that will be available to all the families of the school to see just how it is that we are going to make sure that this return happens. I will be doing a lot of purchasing through Securing Materials to make sure that those things that the teachers say they don't have, which are many, will be in place for next year's students. And so that's a major goal for next year. Things to celebrate, as I say, I won't begin to capture much of what I could have, because I tried to stay within like 7 slides. But PBIS is a really good one to highlight, because there's been a lot of concerted effort from the committee to try to have something take root, which folks have had question on and maybe has taken a little while to get going. But they have persevered, and I thank them for that. That was a topic of conversation at today's meeting. I can say that we do have 100% of our teachers engaging in our point sheets every day, and it's great. There's varying degrees of that, admittedly, and we'll continue to remove those barriers like I talked about, but it's key that we are all on the same page and taking that approach so that we have some common language on how to discuss the progress of our students or recognize when there's something that we need to do to intervene and help out. The recent self-assessment survey was 91% of our teachers did that. Just a few years ago, there was 9 staff members that did it. 91%, this was about 48 of our staff members took it this year. And with that, you get actual useful information that will drive what we do going forward. And so it's great benefit to have that many versus trying to make decisions based on only 9. Attendance, just a couple of things that we've been working on quite a bit this year. The attendance for our students, I know it's 0.75%, but that's still a lot of student hours in the classroom, and that definitely represents the highest attendance percentage that I could find going back historically for our building, and 96.2% sits comfortably ahead of our own building and district goals for having students here every day. And I also wanted to make sure to highlight the fact that our teachers are doing just the same in terms of improvement, with a really nice 1.5% increase in attendance every day, and I thank them for that commitment. Just maybe seemingly random, but I don't know, it's just a nice sign of things. Our band participation has gone from 50 to 70 in 1 year. We have an amazing new band leader, Mr. Fatigato, who thankfully the voters will give another 0.2, an extra day to our school this coming year, going from 0.4 to 0.6, but it's a great sign of things to come, and I do thank him for that, and I just wanted to give him that credit. Community engagement, a lot of different groups have a hand in what happens here and making the experience what it is. I could speak to each of them, but I just really think it's important to just make mention of a couple quickly. And I apologize, it's my first time doing it, so I'm probably way over whatever folks envision me speaking. But Passport for Good, really a great way for us to make sure that our students are being mindful of the service that they're giving. And so you'll learn more about that next year. It's gotten off the ground this year, and I appreciate the work of Ms. Bruce and the guidance from Ms. Adams for introducing that to us, but it's a nice way for students to really quantify the work that they're doing in the community. Regional Food Bank, it's been great for us to be able to connect with them, and of course for Grassroots Givers for providing what they do for our students every single week here. SUNY Albany, I definitely must mention because of the TLQP opportunities, giving us roughly $20,000 to make better the realities for our students, and we'll stretch that well this year, and we'll stretch it even more efficiently next year now that I have some idea how to do whatever you're supposed to do with TLQP. I've learned a little bit this year. But some great groups right up there, for sure. STEAM, that is something that Gabe mentioned and has come into the reality in our building. We have 5 after-school offerings that have run since January. We'll go right up through the last week of school, getting every bit of the year that we can covered. We were not part of the same programming that's going on at most of the schools, which is understandable, but we wanted to make sure we had this opportunity nonetheless. And in the first go-round of it, we've had about 55% of our students taking part in one of these 5 classes. You can see what they are and who leads them to the right there. But, I noticed that, there isn't busing for it, and it is how it is, but we've really worked through our homeschool coordinator, which, thank you, now I have a full-time homeschool coordinator, has really helped to remove barriers where folks wanted it. We reached out to those students, any student that a teacher recognized as maybe being someone who might want to be in it but had a barrier, to make sure that there really was desire or not. And if there was desire, then how can we help make sure that we can either inform you or educate you what it's about, remove the barriers when we can. And so that definitely did get some additional students on, but it's been a very successful program that would not happen if not for the teachers who run this and the teacher assistant, Ms. Clark, who does it just because she's absolutely wonderful. And there's some nice pictures. Alex on the left is a bus driver who has just totally bought into our One School, One Book initiative, and he has He lets the kids see that he's reading. He questions them about the book and how it's going. We're getting close to the end on it, and it's really, I think, been a successful venture. And so Alex needs to be recognized, because I know sometimes, bus drivers may get a little bit of something, but this is a good man, and he really has stepped in to do some nice work with our students, and I really thank him for that. And then, Gabe, he's in the middle. It just happened to be the guy I had in that picture already, and then when I learned that we would have a student guest, it just was like a perfect match, and so he just was there already because he's just that kind of great. And he won, actually won an autographed copy of our One School, One Book, Flora and Ulysses by K.T. Camilla just recently because of some work he was doing, and then just another little bit of a look at some Montessori work. I'm sorry if I went way longer than I was supposed to go, but thank you all again. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. So before we do our photo op, I have a few recognitions for our board and some acknowledgments. I received a letter this week, and it says, "Dear CSDA Board of Education, the gracious ladies of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Delta Mu Omega Chapter, Albany, New York, would like to express our appreciation for your support as a community partner. We would also like to acknowledge Board of Education Secretary, Ms. Vicki Smith, for her participation and support in our annual Scholarship Gospel Brunch held on Sunday, April 15th, 2018. Founded and established by African American women in 1908 on the campus of Howard University at Washington, D.C., Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority is the first Greek letter sorority for college-educated women. AKA is an organization committed to the cultivation and empowerment of young women with high academic standards who embrace a commitment to servant leadership that is both domestic and international in scope. We were honored to have Secretary Smith in attendance at the Gospel Brunch. During the event, we enjoyed performances from local talent, including Miss Linda Mallory Mitchell, music specialist at Giffen Elementary School. I know seeing Miss Mitchell share her vocal talent was a proud moment for the Board of Education as well as the Albany School District. Again, we are grateful to the City School District of Albany for its generous support of this event. We look forward to partnering with you again in the future. Together, we can work in cooperation with our diverse community to engage each student in a robust educational program designed to provide the knowledge and skills necessary for success. Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated Delta Mu Omega Chapter is committed to providing mentoring and scholarship opportunities for the students in the City School District of Albany. Yours very truly, Sabrina Fontenot, the President. So we have this, where did Ms. Paula go? There she is. So we have this letter in a package for you. So thank you very much on behalf of the sorority. Our next recognition, the New York State Board Association School Board U Recognition Program is designed to recognize extensive time and effort for school board members who strive to continually expand their governance knowledge and skills. NYSBA's recognition program is comprised of 4 achievement levels. Members qualify for recognition points by participating in any NYSBA developmental activities, such as the New Member Academy, Board Officers Academy, NYSBA Annual Conference, legal conferences, regional workshops, or district-level custom improvement programs. The 4 achievement levels are as follows. Level 1, Board Achievement Award, at least 75 points. Level 2, Board Excellence Award, at least 150 points. Level 3, Board Mastery Award, at least 250 points. And then Board Lifetime Achievement Level 4, at least 500 points. So we have a few board members who have achieved their awards or their recognition. Vicki Smith, 150 points. Ellen Roach, 150 points. Jennifer Lang, 150 points. Ann Savage, 150 points. And President Sue Adler with 250 points. Thank you all so very much, and congratulations. And now we'll go ahead and take a moment to do the photo opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Lesko. So, Madam President, members of the board, that concludes the superintendent's report. And at this time, I'd like to introduce our guest speakers. And tonight with us, we have the City of Albany Department of Water Supply. Our Commissioner, Joe Coffey, is here, along with our Mayor, who is joining us tonight. And they'll talk to us a little bit about the City of Albany's Beaver Creek Clean River Project. The Beaver Creek Project is part of the City of Albany's 15-year plan to address the water quality impacts of combined sewer overflows to the Hudson River. The city is planning to locate this facility at the end of the access road near Thomas O'Brien Academy of Science and Technology. So at this time, I'd like for the city to go ahead and begin with the presentation about the Beaver Creek Project. Thank you very much for coming today.
And thank you for inviting us. With me is Bill Simcoe. Bill is our Deputy Commissioner, and as we like to think in the Water Department, he's the brains and I'm the mouth. But one of the things, before I start, I was intrigued in listening about the 3 students with the research work that they were doing with green infrastructure. So before I leave, I'd like to get their email addresses. They sound like future Water Department employees. One thing that we'd like to do, the presentation that we've been doing is about 45 minutes, and what I'm going to do tonight is distill that down into about 15 minutes. And to help do that, Bill, would you pass these out for me? We had some handouts that we've had, and what I'm going to do is we're going to provide you a copy of the PowerPoint presentation that we've had for each of these presentations that we've done. We've refined it a little bit as we've gone further through these meetings that we've had. And the second handout that we're going to provide is what we call frequently asked questions. And these will probably provide, I would hope, some additional detail on the project that will reinforce perhaps some of the comments we're making tonight and help you digest some of the information we're going to share. We're going to talk about a project that is a $45 million project, and in that context, it is incredibly complex, and to distill this down might be a little difficult. So certainly would be willing to do any future workshop meetings with you if you find that would be helpful. But I want to pass those out too. So just for a little background with this information, we will be developing a project webpage that will be available through the city website. We hope to have that up, if not by tomorrow, certainly early next week. That'll have all of the information we have on this project, including a copy of the long-term control plan, more detailed information about the elements of the preliminary design of this project, PowerPoint information, frequently asked questions, et cetera. But I'd like to start with a little bit of a history of the Beaver Creek system and kind of how we got here. I almost like to navigate. Can I pull this off and walk with this? I want to just, if I can, direct your attention to, this is probably not the best display board to show, but this alignment is essentially the Beaver Creek, the old Beaver Creek in the city of Albany. And back in the 1600s, there were 4 primary creeks that were going through the city of Albany. The Beaver Creek was one of them, and that's what we're going to focus on tonight. The Beaver Creek drains about 5.2 square miles of the city of Albany. It is the largest of our combined sewer sheds in the city, and it's responsible for a tremendous amount of the combined sewer overflows that go into the Hudson River. And just briefly, what's the combined sewer? In the old cities in the Northeast, like Albany, Philadelphia, Syracuse, a lot of the urban areas, the sanitary wastewaters at that time before we had sewers were just essentially let go into the streams. The streams flowed into the river. And at that time, nobody really gave a whole lot of thought about public health concerns. And as the city developed and became more urban-oriented, obviously the odors that were created from these discharges were getting to be pretty onerous. So these streams were beginning to be piped. They were either in stone arches or other types of conduits that took the streams, essentially piped the stream and then conveyed it to the river. And as the city was developed, the sanitary wastewaters that come from our house, we call it, the dirty water, that was essentially dumped into these same sewers. So that's why they call them combined sewers. So when it's not raining, all the wastewater generated from our homes goes into these sewers, and they are then now directed to the, in this case, in the Beaver Creek, to the county wastewater plant down near the Port of Albany. But when it rains, the capacity of both the sewers and the sewage treatment plant, it can't handle all the extra flow, and that's when the combined sewer overflows into the Hudson River. So that's what we're really here to talk about and address. And over the course of the past probably 10 years, starting back in the early 2004 or 5 era, there was a lot of pressure on what we call the pool communities, which are Albany, Cohoes, Green Island, Waterville, Rensselaer, and Troy, all the communities that are essentially near the area below the federal dam. We all have these combined sewer overflows that were creating a health hazard and a real aesthetic issue in the Hudson River and in the pool. So we have historically worked together on our wastewater, the county wastewater districts, for example. So there was a natural relationship. And it got to the point where they formed the pool communities together, negotiated a consent order with the Environmental Conservation Department to mitigate these combined sewer overflows. And that process was about 10 years in the making. And that the long-term control plan that this consent order is based on for the city of Albany has about 54 projects, and the investment on the city's part is about $60 million. The entire long-term control plan has a cost of about $135 million, and that's for all the communities. And the beauty of this is that we share in all the projects. So the city of Albany, the Albany Water Board is responsible for 58% of the cost of all the projects, whether they're in Albany, Troy, Rensselaer, Cohoes, wherever, and the other communities are going to be responsible for 42% of the projects that we have in the city of Albany. So that's just a little background on this consent order. So the consent order was signed and executed in early 2014, and the biggest project in the consent order for all the pool communities and certainly for us is the Beaver Creek project. And in the long-term control plan, it was known as the Big C, and that is just the designation for the regulator that's down here at Arch Street that is the source of the overflow. So that's just a little bit of the background, and that's explained in the PowerPoint to some extent. So that's kind of why we're doing the project. And the next question is where the project is located. And we talk about a little bit of all that 5.2 square miles that we talked about. This goes up towards the state campus. It goes out to out near Buckingham Pond, out in that part of the city, right, Ian? And it's a large drainage area, and all of the trunk sewers, like from Washington Park Lake, Myrtle Avenue, Delaware Avenue, and Hackett Boulevard, they all converge at Delaware Avenue, just around where the Toast School is. So the critical section of the sewer goes from Delaware Avenue through Lincoln Park and all the way down to the Hudson River, which is shown on this board here. And this trunk sewer, this part through Lincoln Park was built around 1870. somewhere. Part of Delaware was about 1870. Some of these are a little bit older than that. So we're really looking at, for us to effectively handle this part of the project, this facility needs to be built someplace on this critical part of the trunk sewer. So when you looked at this board, and we have this picture in the PowerPoint, the section here in blue is the 100-year floodplain at the Hudson River. So the city actually has an ordinance that they really don't want to see critical infrastructure built in a 100-year floodplain. And it makes it more expensive. It's got to be built higher. And those of us, I think, who are a little bit aware of the fact that we probably have some opportunity to witness global warming and rising sea levels even in our lifetime, well, this is still affected by tides here up to the federal dam in Troy. So we likely will see an increase in the tide levels and the sea level of the Hudson River, certainly within the next 50 years and in the next 100 years. So to build that facility here would not be a prudent investment to spend $45 million. And in fact, the project would be likely be more expensive here because we'd have to raise it, and we'd have to flood-proof it, and we'd have to pump it. The next part of this section here is what we call South End. It's the commercial and residential area where the towers are down Grant Street, and this goes up Warren Street. It's very dense, kind of heavily populated area. So the area that's left is really Lincoln Park. We have what we call the primary recreation area where the pool and the bowl is. And then we go a little bit farther up past Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard, where the Toast School is. This is where we have this big ravine. And I want to talk about the ravine for a second, because that is a secondary, kind of a secondary benefit, if you will, of us doing the project up in this area. For those of you who are familiar with this area, that ravine has two large grates that are in the low area that when we have a what we call significant rain event, the combined sewage actually surfaces up through the ravine, which has sanitary, which is kind of an oxymoron. It has wastewater in it that overflows into that ravine onto the ground. And then when the flow abates in the storm sewer, the liquid goes down, but there's still residual solids and materials from the sewers that are left on the ground. It's a health hazard. And that lingers. It doesn't go away. And it's kind of malodorous, particularly it's in the summertime when these storm events happen. And if you talk to folks who live on Park Avenue, even when it's not raining, that sewer will vent, and you can get some pretty strong odors in that ravine. So we see it as a health hazard. And this area in the ravine, if you recall, when you pull into the parking area with Toast, there's a chain link fence, and you've got keep out signs around it. That is a sinkhole that's developing over the arch sewer up in that area. And for those of you who can remember the last 2 or 3 years where we've had catastrophic sinkhole failures at New Scotland Avenue in Madison and also on South Lake and Elbron, this is the same sewer. So obviously we have a little concern about that. So by looking at the project and doing a project up in this area, we not only are going to be complying with the consent order, but we are solving two critical problems that we have up here at the same time. So I just want to keep that in play of why the project is located where it is. So what's the project intended to do? A lot of people say it's a sewer plant. It's treating combined sewage to the extent that it's removing floatables. What are floatables? Either the plastic bottles, the leaves, the trash, the things that go into the catch basins along the sides of the streets. We're going to screen that material out. And then what we're going to do is we're going to disinfect it, seasonally disinfect it. So when the recreation season on the river is from May 1st to October 31st, during that time frame, we're going to use liquid chlorine to disinfect the combined wastewaters that are at the facility, provide enough detention time with that chlorine where it's going to kill the bacteria and viruses. And at that point, we also then dechlorinate it, so by the time this stuff gets back into the river, there's no chlorine left in the material that would harm any of the aquatic life that's in the river at that time. So that's what the facility is intended to do. How am I doing on time, all right? So the schedule that we're talking about is we have to be operational with this facility in 2022. So our goal is we've started preliminary design. We've got a 30% design done to this point, and we're trying to get to the point that we can get to construction in 2019. That gives us plenty of time to make sure if we have any issues that come up, we can get them taken care of before we have to be operational in 2022. The cost of the project is $45 million, and to date, we've received $10 million in grants, which is a significant asset, significant help for us, because that's frankly $10 million less that we would have to finance on the ratepayers. So the project that we're talking about tonight, which we've shown some renderings and other visuals here, all these images are also in the PowerPoint handout that we have. We're about 30% complete with design. And the reason we stopped there is we want to get input from the community on really what we're looking at doing. And as we talked about at this point, the 30% design, most of the facility is actually located underground, and there's a couple of diagrams in our PowerPoint that we've shared with you that show the facility underground. We built it, we're showing it built into the hill, so the renderings, when you look at it from Toast, you can see a green roof at the top. So there's the vista that you have from Toast is still maintained looking out towards the river. One thing that we've done and we've emphasized as well, these look a little sterile, you know, with the black fence. We've actually shown that with absent any landscaping so that we can give folks a pretty good idea what this would look like. Obviously, when it would be built, we would try to make this a little bit less offensive to the eye and do some landscaping in there as well to make it more appealing. And then the real feature that we talked about, which is also one of the things that we're looking at, is the reflection and the learning garden. And we put this in here primarily because it's located near Toast and because our Albany Water Board members said, hey, you got this facility near a school. How can we incorporate what we want to do to fix the problem that we have in the ravine and at the same time provide an opportunity for outdoor classrooms and education, STEM education? In the first meeting we actually had, we met with the folks at Toast and some of the staff people who shared with us some ideas of what they thought would be valuable assets as part of this learning and reflection and learning center. So this is an important part of what we think the community meetings are going to help us identify. What are the things we can do here that add the most value to the project? And while we're doing this, the city's also looking at doing some master planning for Lincoln Park. And one of the things that we've learned is when we looked at this, you know, it looked like it's a pretty small section where this reflection and learning garden would be. And the comments would be, well, can we make it bigger? Can we tie it into the rest of Lincoln Park? Can we make this so that it integrates more with the school? And can we make it so that it goes up towards Delaware Avenue? It's really more of a community asset, and it's more inherently organic with the school. So those are some of the things we've had immediately from our community feedback that we're going to continue to see how we can incorporate that into our final design. So we had a community meeting with Toast, a small meeting with Toast before we went out to anybody and said, hey, what do you think about the project? And frankly, they were pretty excited about it. That was on March 19th. On March 21st, we had a neighborhood meeting with the Hudson Park Neighborhood Association. And since that time, we've had 3 other community meetings, 2 of them at Toast on April 10th, one on April 23rd. We met with a village on May 10th, and I have another meeting coming up Saturday with folks at the Grand State Community Arts Center. And one of the other items that came out of this was, can we get a community advisory group? Because these meetings have like 100 people, there's a lot of questions. Can we kind of condense that down a little bit and get a little more focused discussion from people that can represent the community? So we started those meetings, and frankly, one of the things that we'd like to do is to ask for your recommendations, and perhaps would it be appropriate, would you help us get some folks either from Toast, the PTA, the staff people, or anyone else you think the board or the administration would suggest would be valuable additions to our community advisory group. And that will really help us get to the point where we can really move this project down, try to get to a final design and keep the project moving along. And I just wanted to share also some of the feedback that we've had with these word cloud, if I can have somebody just pass these around. These are just some of the themes that arose out of the meetings that we've had to this date, which identify some of the issues that are of most importance to folks. And that'll help us, again, to keep honing in on what's important as we move further along. So the next meeting we're going to try to do with the Community Advisory Group is actually a walk through the ravine. We think that'll kind of focus everybody's attention. Did I miss anything? So that's kind of where we're at.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Coffey. I appreciate your presence and those of the mayors and the assistants, so thank you. And does anybody have any questions? Dr. Chator.
Mr. Coffey, a question about you. You mentioned about the odors. So having it underground, you still have to vent it. Would that somehow take care of the odors? Or the reason why I ask is because I work at the right across from in a beautiful building that is right across the Rensselaer waste treatment plant, and it is really difficult to be at work.
It is, and one of the things that this project will allow us to do when we do the work in the ravine, we're actually taking some of the excavated material from the satellite facility, and we're going to fill about 8 to 10 feet of that ravine in. And it also allow us to do some treatment where those grates are right now that vent. We can control and trap the gases that are in there. So our goal is to keep all the gases contained in the system. The second thing is that sewer gets to be a secondary sewer, a bypass sewer. All of the flow is actually going to go through a new connection that we're making from Delaware Avenue down towards this new facility. So the sewer that's there now becomes a bypass, an emergency bypass used only when the flows are extremely high. The other thing that we've committed to do too as part of this project is we've agreed that we will do some additional environmental studies through this project, which would be a traffic study. We're going to do a health and safety risk assessment on the construction and the operation of the facility. And air monitoring and air quality is an important element for the folks in this neighborhood. So we've committed to do an air quality study, and we will put air monitoring in the facility as a promise that we made to the community.
Okay, thank you.
So I just want to add that this is a project that we view as an environmental justice project. And when the water department first started talking about putting this facility up near the school, I had the same questions that I think any mom, any school parent would have with respect to what is it going to look like, what is it going to sound like, what is it going to smell like, and what is it going to do with respect to impact. And all of those issues and the concerns around the health hazard that exists next to this school right now, I think have been addressed in this project as we continue to get great community input about ways that we can ensure that a community that has been the recipient of projects in years past that weren't always in their best interest, so that we can create and build that trust. But this is a project that fixes a health hazard that exists next to an elementary school that is a great, really from an engineering standpoint, from a STEM learning standpoint, is a really great opportunity not only for the kids at Toast, but for the kids across the street at Hackett Middle School. And it is something that is solving a centuries-old problem that we've had in the city. And my commitment to this is that this has to benefit the community. And the advisory committee that we have is representative of people who share concerns that the community has, but we also have Aaron Mayer, who sits on that committee, who's the former president of the Sierra Club. We've asked people who should be the biggest critics of this type of project to be part of that project, and we would invite the district to have a representative participate as well, because we recognize that we have a long way to go to build that trust that was eroded after decades and decades of projects that didn't necessarily benefit the community. And that's the spirit in which we're here, and the spirit in which we want to receive input as we finalize this project going forward.
Anyone else?
You mentioned that there would be a traffic study done, and then you mentioned an alternative loop road concept at Toast. So I was wondering if you could talk to me about both of those.
One of the things that came up through some community meetings, as we know now, the road that goes through is a cut through that goes from Delaware down to Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard. And there was some expression that perhaps there would be some safety issues. So naturally, we're engineers, so when we designed the facility, we designed it so that it was going to be built into the existing hill where the existing road is. So naturally, the first thing we do is we give another road, because we took a road, we'll give a road. And people say, well, do we really need a road there? And what we'd like to see is more of a cul-de-sac. So we come in, there'd be essentially a dedicated entrance from Delaware Avenue exclusively for Toast and access to, the area that could be a recreational area in the ravine, because all of the access to our facility would come off of Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard. So we committed to doing a traffic study, working with public safety, the fire and police folks, to see whether that is a viable alternative. The traffic study would be required because we'd have to see, a warrant for a traffic light on Delaware Avenue. There's other traffic issues that are out there now, so that's the reason for. We'd like to look at it as an option, but it needs further study.
Thank you. I live there.
So there's nothing else. I just wanted to thank you again for coming to explain this to us. And really, I appreciate all the time you're taking. I know you're probably having a lot of community meetings, but it helps us understand what's happening. And thank you for coming and for keeping us abreast of all of the developments.
Thank you.
So Superintendent Adams, even though we talked to the National Board teachers before, I did want to say long before you came and probably before many of the people on the board were here, Rita Floss did a presentation at one time, a number of years ago, when we were congratulating a number of teachers who reached that level. And her slideshow, her digital show, whatever that was posted and that she went through, really outlined the extraordinary efforts that these teachers have to do in addition to their regular work. So maybe what we could do is get that posted, and then the public could see it if they ask, what does it mean to be a nationally board certified teacher? And also then the board would know, because it is, I remember everybody was really quite taken with the amount of hours that were put into this. It was almost one of those things like, boy, that is really somebody who has initiative and who is really dedicated, because it takes up so much of their time to get that certification. So, and I asked Rita, do you still have that? And she said yes, so they're gone now. But thank you so much for that. It is now public comment. The Albany Board of Education welcomes district residents, parents, students, and other people to our meeting. We appreciate community input about the decisions we are making. In addition to accepting comments during the public comment period, we also accept comments by email, phone, or postal mail. While you are making your remarks, keep in mind that by law, information about individual students and specific district staff cannot be shared. Every student and every staff member deserves to know that concerns about them will not be aired in public. Also, keep in mind that public comment is not the best place to first alert the district to a concern you have. Please share your concerns first with relevant staff, such as the teacher or principal. If you feel the concern is not addressed adequately, you may appeal that to that person's supervisor up the chain of command, if necessary, to the superintendent. Decisions made by the superintendent may be appealed to the board. Finally, please note that the board generally does not respond during the public comment period. If you need a response, please consider contacting us by email, phone, or postal mail. When I recognize you, please state your name and city of residence. Statements are restricted to a maximum of 3 minutes. You will be given a 1-minute notice and a 10-second notice, and I will notify you if your time has expired. Christine Rivera. Oh, I'm sorry, Christian Rivera. Sorry about that.
Christian Rivera, Albany, New York. I want to call on the student body and student government to demand a lower voting age and voting rights on school boards. Even though our political system is a plutocracy that foments violence, the hope is that the student participation in the electoral system and on school boards can move these institutions away from violence. Now is the time. The momentum must be continued. One of the beauties of political protest/action is that when you point a finger, there are 3 pointing back at you. Urge the student body, student council to fight against the violence that is being sustained by actions here in the Albany school system in 2 key areas. 1, the cafeteria, and 2, the ROTC program. Those opposed to unnecessary violence must have some consistency in action. As for the cafeteria, there are approximately 9.5 billion land animals slaughtered every year in the USA. Surely, if we cannot, like one school cafeteria in California, go completely vegan, we can set a goal of 50% reduction in meat, egg, and cow milk consumption. Let me note the cruelty of egg and milk production. Male baby chicks are ground to death after birth, while their mothers are tortured for life in tiny wire-bottom cages. Mother cows are raped, have their baby cows stolen from them at birth, and will likely never leave an industrial barn. The torture of animals in industrial farms in our society, and hence cafeteria, must be contained and ultimately stopped. The unnecessary violence fomented by the ROTC program also must be stopped. We have a political system which allows one man, the president, to start wars that have killed millions and have indebted the people for $21 trillion. Now, about 60% of US federal debt is unnecessary war spending, and I can break that down even further. It has to do with $2.9 trillion being stolen from Social Security, and you work backwards from there. Social Security has only run a deficit until recently. People have terms to, but the numbers are there, I can explain this. I challenge any teacher to explain where the actual debt of $21 trillion comes from. Its source. Where does the debt actually come from? If we did not have the multitude of lies which start wars of aggression, we the people would not be debt slaves. A short, incomplete list of lies that the U.S. wars of aggression would be: the natives must be removed, genocide, half of Mexico's land must be stolen, I know they stole it too. The Maine, so Cuba, Puerto Rico, Philippines, and Guam must be invaded and stolen. The Gulf of Tonkin, so let's kill a few million Vietnamese. Iraq has WMD, the invasion and occupation of Afghanistan is for women's rights, and to stop plane hijackings. Libya is an R2P mission, and Syria used chemical weapons in 2013, 2017, and 2018. Lies, lies, nonstop lies. Nonstop. The ROTC program obviously should be removed to stop the wanton violence it foments.
Mr. Rivera,
The violence
if
must
you
be
could
confronted.
please finish up. Your time is up.
I would like to deliver my remarks to the student representative for consideration, but I see that they are not here. I don't know if they are normally here or not, so I would like to leave a copy of this for,
Oh, yes, please, to our board clerk.
for the clerk, and if they
Yes.
could also give a copy to the student representative and have copies for whoever else wants some.
Yes, thank you so much. And Ms. Tibbetts over there to the left will take them. Thank you very, very much. April Bacon.
April Bacon, Albany, New York. I just want to make a point. I hope there are pictures being taken tonight to see that people did show up to the meeting, because it's obviously relevant when they don't. There is obviously an issue when board members treat and describe our communities, our schools, and our parents differently. So instead of reacting, I thought I'd give you a listen. We all know Jeff Foxworthy, and you might be a redneck if. I have a new one for you. You might be a racist if. You described involved black communities as protesters. You might be a racist if. If you refer to engaged black parents as angry. You might be a racist if you believe that black parents had to be coerced to advocate for their children. You might be a racist if you refer to the information provided to black families as fake news, even though it was provided directly from the district. You might be a racist if you think being non-white means you're not racist. You might be a racist if you are thinking you aren't racist because you have friends of color. The last people to count their Negroes are also slave owners. The Arbor Hill community was publicly insulted on social media by a board member, and I keep hearing, we can't address this publicly, April, even though it's Trump-like behavior. Well, our community can, and we will. And if the board does not publicly address this, we must assume that you are of like mind, and I don't question if some of you are. I am tired of talking to this board about racism. I sat here before some of you ever did, even as board members, even as parents. It's the same conversation, and it's frigging exhausting. So I want to be very clear on some things. It is not your job to tell black children how they should feel when they visit black schools, because you might be dark, but you're not African American. Your opinion is not warranted, and check your privilege at the door. You have one employee, that is our superintendent. That is the person who has to listen to your opinion, even if you are unqualified to give it. Your degree does not qualify you. You are not a hashtag. There's actually only 2 people sitting in front of me who understand hashtag barbecuing while black, hashtag napping while black, hashtag Airbnb while black, hashtag golfing while black, hashtag Starbucks while black, hashtag walking your baby while black, hashtag driving while black. No, we don't need to feel comfortable. As a matter of fact, it's time we made you uncomfortable. In closing, I want to remind every non-African American on the board, you are not allowed, and make it very clear, I am saying allowed, to discuss our feelings or our experiences. You are not allowed to ask us anything. The only thing you want to know is how you can help us and make it better. You are not trusted. Your one board member speaking screwed you. Let me be very clear. In closing, I want to say, it is wrong to do it in the streets. It is wrong to do it in the tweets. You cannot do it on a field. You cannot do it if you've kneeled. And don't do it if you're rich, you ungrateful son of a witch. Because there's one thing that's a fact. You cannot live, you cannot breathe. You do not matter if you're black.
Thank you, Ms. Macon.
Thank you.
Nolene Smith.
Good evening. I'm going to direct my comments clearly to Dr. Shatar. As a public person, we're entitled to call your name. So I'm here to address the same issue. I don't understand how is it when poor black people come out to tell the school district what they're opposed to, they're angry and we're coerced. Is it that you don't believe that poor people living in Arbor Hill, West Hill, and the South End have a mind of their own? They don't have feelings. They can't care about their children. They don't want what's best for their children. They need people like educated people or people that sat on the committee to coerce them to come to speak. No, we didn't coerce them. And you misspoke. You also misspoke when you said that, because many of us that were on the committee got off the committee after a year and a half of wasting our time. And when we felt like it wasn't going anywhere, we removed ourselves from that committee so we wouldn't be a part of a poor decision. So to write in public and put it out on the web that angry people showed up and they were coerced by the people that were sitting on the committee and made those decisions, you were wrong. But let me be clear. We have constitutional rights. As an immigrant, you should appreciate it. I'm an immigrant, and I came here, and I'm a citizen now. But you know what? I am still not equal to a natural-born American. They can run for president. I cannot. You can't either. So respect your rights that you were given when you come here, and don't look down on the people that are here before you. African Americans, they were forced to come here, but they're here now, and they'll always be. You don't get to tell them how to think. You don't get to tell them how to feel about their children. And fake news, what in God's name is fake news? Because President Trump brought it, doesn't make it real. News is something that we haven't known before, and it's brand new to us. Fake news, no such thing. Keep it out of your words and stop looking down at people. We expect that the board will hold people accountable that sit on your board. Hold them accountable for respecting not just people in the middle-class neighborhood. And to talk about they came to protest, people have a right to protest. It's a constitutional right. But they weren't protesting. They just came to let you know what they thought about what you were doing, and they have the right to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Dr. Brandon?
Good evening. I have a question, and I think it wouldn't be out of order if you could answer me tonight. Formerly, the board had a practice of the second meeting being a round table, and I think you still announce it as such, but one of the items of that meeting was that the public was allowed to make a comment at the conclusion of the meeting. I don't know if you still do that or not. My reason for asking is, on your agenda tonight, you have a discussion, middle school configuration, the long-awaited transportation study overview is a part of it. And I'm concerned that when you do go over it, the public, some of the people here in the public might have a question, because lots of times, even in your dialogue during your whatever agenda item you're on, all points are not addressed. And so I'm just wondering, because of what you have on tonight and the importance of it, would the public be able to ask a question or further information tonight? And if you haven't cut out that, because I know you still call your second meeting a roundtable, but when we first instituted that, there was supposed to be comments at the end. Now, can you give me a quick yes or no, whether you still do it?
That was changed years ago, and the answer to your question is anything that comes up, because no decisions are made tonight, any questions that come up, shoot an email. Doesn't have to be long, doesn't have to be, well, just quick email, and we'll answer, and we'll get the information to you. And
Okay, well, my problem with that is...
now we're having a back and forth.
Yeah, no, we're finished. We're not having a back and forth. My problem with that is sometimes we take care of things at the end of the meeting when everybody's gone home, and sometimes if the public wants to know something, the other people, you might answer an individual, but you don't, but the real impact of it never gets to the public. So based on what you just told me, I would strongly admonish you and recommend that you reconsider that practice by way of a policy. And I'm looking right at you, Ann, by way of a policy, because I'm not so sure if you did, I don't recall it being discontinued. I know we just stopped doing it, but I don't think we ever officially discontinued it. And because of that, I think that it needs to be, this second meeting, the comment before and comments after, especially when you have things on this agenda as important as the middle school and things leading up to it. So that's all I have to say to you tonight. And would you please think about that, rethink.
Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Brennan. We're going into routine consent now. May I get a motion to accept routine consent? Ms. Wilson, seconded by Ms. Roach. Any set-asides? I knew it. Ms. Savage?
I need to set aside, it was letter M earlier, I don't think it got out of order, the addendum for the Boys and Girls Club.
Don't you also want to set aside the two playground ones you usually like to thank? You usually like to I was waiting for you.
If you would like me to, I certainly can.
Well, just keeping the procedure up to you. So you want to set aside the Boys and Girls Club?
Yes.
And any other set-asides? We'll set aside also A and the two playground ones, B and C. Okay, may I get a motion to accept routine consent other than the Boys and Girls Club item, which I do not have in front of me, I apologize, and B and C. And that, I'm sorry, motion by Ms. Roach, seconded by Ms. Smith. All those in favor? Ms. Lang? Are you voting? Okay, unanimous. All right, can I get a motion, please, to accept the contract for the Boys and Girls Club? Ms. Wilson, seconded by Ms. Smith. Any discussion?
I would just like to get some clarification about why we need to add money to this contract and extend dates. I don't understand why it wasn't intended to be a full school year contract at the first point. I just don't understand. Anybody?
This is about it's actually, the contract has an extension of days for two separate locations. One is Giffen and the other is Arbor Hill, and it's the Boys and Girls Club, and it is not so much, I think, the amount, though I don't want to speak for Ms. Savage, it's that it looks like we're extending days, and the days are actually within the school year. So it's the question, right, so the question is, did we have as our original contract not going through closer to the end of the year? In other words, why was there a gap on the number of days? I was looking at Ms. Bridgewater nodding. So anybody in the room who can answer the question would be great. Anyone?
I'll go ahead and respond. Those days did not, and I don't know, I don't have the answer as to why there was a gap, but we can definitely get that information. So it does extend these additional days.
I'm just looking at the dates and I'm wondering, I would prefer to table it, but I don't want to create a contractual problem for the service provider.
So as always with tabling things, we usually ask the question that Ms. Savage just articulated, which is there going to be a problem with not signing and passing this tonight?
I think we do need to go ahead and sign it tonight because those May 25th is coming up very quickly. We're already in that time frame for the requested extension.
So could we, if it's okay with Ms. Savage, can we please get information tomorrow on just
Absolutely.
confirming that the original contract ran through, sort of answering this question as to why, because normally we haven't had this every year where we've had to extend.
We can do that.
So we're just not
We can
really
do
sure.
that.
That's fine with Ms. Savage. So all those in favor of the Boys and Girls Club contract being, did you have a question or is that just, okay. All those in favor? And that is unanimous, thank you. And we set aside B and C, so can I get a motion to accept B and C? Ms. Savage, and seconded by Ms. Roach. Any discussion?
I didn't, you actually set it aside, but I will take the discussion. I'd like to thank St. Peter's for their donations of playground equipment to Toast and a climbing wall at Giffen. We are very, very, very much interested in integrating, did I say it backwards? Yep. Sorry. Playground equipment at Giffen and a climbing wall at Toast. We're very interested in seeing physical activity as part of the school day, and so anything we can do to increase the amount of physical activity. It's a research-based mechanism for decreasing problems with behavior and increasing learning, and we appreciate the work of St. Peter's.
So yes, thank you to our community partners who continue to benefit our students. All those in favor of that contract, or both of that, I'm sorry, the donation, yes, and that is unanimous, thank you. So there's one thing I want to say, even though we passed routine consent, and rather than waiting for the discussion, because actually we don't have really a discussion when it's the second meeting of the month. And that is on a number of the contracts, but I didn't want to actually set them aside and have a discussion to not vote on them. A few of our contracts on the back page for measurable results have, the best way I can describe it is say they are slipping in their measurable results. So they'd say, like, one of them said, decreasing school violence and something, and another one said like increasing sort of the skill from PD for teachers. And we really had, we were striving for years to get away from that kind of language and go to an actual numerical goal. So not pie in the sky, but even 10% decrease, 5% increase, 2%. And I don't know how the rest of the board feels about it or if you noted it, but it just felt like there were more than I've seen before in any one routine consent, given where we were headed and where we had been. And so if I'm the only one troubled by it, then that's one voice. But I would very much like for us, for measurable results, to go back to it, because there's been times when we've been actually able to track it year to year and see the efficacy of the contract.
We will add those numerical components to the presentation, to the
Ms. Roach?
information of the contract. I'm sorry.
Thank
We
you,
have an
Superintendent.
answer to your question on the contract. So right now, what the original contract was funded by the 21st Century Community Learning Grant, and the two schools elected to use their community schools aid to allocate and support an extension of that time. So they extended it. Historically, the program ended early, so they used some of their extra money to extend it to support the students.
That's great for the answer and also for the use of the funding to continue the after-school benefits for the kids. Ms. Roach.
I just wanted to agree with you and say I share your concern about these measurable results that are more nebulous goals. So I'd like to see SMART goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, time constrained. You know, like for example, rather than saying, I think we have for the yoga, we'll improve the school climate, as opposed to that, I would like to see, like, let's say, for example, we're going to have 5% less vaders in the next school year. Even though you couldn't attribute all of that specifically to the yoga, at least something specific would be, I think, would be helpful.
And to build on that, it sort of, as you know, sets, has a mindset that it's not just, you know, sort of, because one of the measurable results actually used the word qualitative, which seemed to be slightly inconsistent, sort of incongruence that a measurable result would have the phrase qualitative. So anyway, thank you very much for attending to it. And we are now up to, should I put this down? The canvas, so, yes. We are going, so, is that there? No, that actually was removed. So, right, the canvas? Yes, so, but I will use that opportunity to very quickly, in 1 minute's time, explain the removal of the canvas piece. So what was decided was that at the next board meeting, we will actually certify the results at this, somehow it got pulled, but what happened, there was an accident, and the board this year, for the last time, will be actually certifying both the board member election as well as the library and the school budget next May. But this year, the certification of the school board members still occurs by the Board of Elections. They will be opening the absentee ballots next week. We will have a presence there. And then they will send a note, an official note, to our board clerk. And she pulled this up for me, so that's how I know the language. So Ms. Tibbetts will get a formal recognition by the Board of Elections, and then she is entrusted with sending out letters to the candidates to let them know the official results. So we actually, in the past, I thought we actually certified them sometimes, but we really didn't have the authority. It was of no consequence because we had no authority to do that. So that will actually become official once the absentees are open next week, notwithstanding the difference in votes makes it that the absentees can't change the result. But as a result, the budget was removed. The budget did pass. There's no question about the certification, but we will officially pass it on the 7th of June. So sorry about the mix-up. And now we're up to the policy for Ms. Savage's discussion.
So tonight we have 3 policies in front of you. One is for action. We discussed it some time ago, and 2 are for discussion. So for action, we have the Medicaid policy. We have reimbursements of Medicaid over $500,000, which requires us to have a Medicaid policy. We discussed this in April, and now we would be adopting it. As part of that policy, we are also required to appoint a Medicaid compliance officer, which is item B here. So those are the 2 items for action. And I'm thinking maybe we should act on those before we go to the discussion. Is that okay? So the Medicaid policy was really worked on by Kate Howard. It's a pretty standard sort of ministerial policy. If anyone has any questions, Mr. Honeywell will hopefully come back and answer them.
May I get a motion to adopt the Medicaid policy? Ms. Wilson, seconded by Dr. Chatur. All those in favor? Second motion now for the appointment of the Medicaid compliance officer through June 30th, 2018. May I get a motion? Ms. Smith, seconded by Ms. Roach. All those in favor? That is also unanimous.
Then we have 2 policies which are up for discussion this time. That means we will not act on them. We have the opportunity to discuss them, and we would likely act on them next time. The 2 policies are 8334 credit cards. This is a very simple change. It's just a matter of increasing the amount due to the amount of travel and the increasing expense of travel. We're finding the old limits very constraining for the district, and so we're recommending an increase, the aggregate credit limit to $30,000 and each individual card to a limit of $15,000. I think many people in the public would be surprised to realize how little credit cards actually come into play. We basically have 2 credit cards for the entire City School District of Albany. This is not a major part of how we do business, but it does become important when we're trying to book and reserve travel arrangements. The second policy, do you want me to go ahead with the second one? Second one is 4772 graduation ceremonies. This is not the requirements for graduation, but it's rather the way that the ceremony is structured. The education law changed recently and requires that boards of education establish a policy and adopt procedures to allow students who've achieved certain kinds of credentials which are not technically high school diplomas. They are skills and achievement commencement credentials or career development and occupational studies commencement credentials to participate in the graduation ceremony along with the children that they began 9th grade with. As a practical matter, normally we don't adopt procedures. We normally only adopt policies. The law was strangely written that requires us to specifically adopt the procedure. So this time we get to adopt the procedure. I want to be very clear that this affects only the high school graduation. This does not affect the moving up ceremonies that happen at our other schools, even though people colloquially call those graduations, they're really moving up ceremonies. And the policy and regulations that we're proposing are essentially the same as the NYSBA samples that were provided to us. They're very standard sorts of policies. The one thing we did insert, which is consistent with practice already, I understand, at the high school, was to require that graduation attire never be assigned based on gender. That was the one thing we added as something we wanted to insert into the policy. And that was acceptable to staff. So those are my 2 points of discussion.
So I actually have a question. I swear I think this is the first time in a long time in policy I've ever asked a question, but are we going to be ensuring that this year's graduation, or is it too late based on ordering gowns that, they're all one color this
We
year?
were told by staff, and this went over 2 policy committee meetings, and I believe Superintendent Adams went back and checked with staff, that is a non-issue for this year. So the policy is just bringing it in. The policy is consistent with practice. There's no need to change practice. The practice has already been changed.
I assume they're Falcon Blue? Interesting. So that's surprise. Okay, so thank you. I had no idea. Thank you for answering that, and that's interesting and good news, because it always used to be very interesting to look out and see very strict gender adherence to color and no room in between, so in general. So thank you. So is that it? Awesome. And no more questions? Yes, a question. Ms. Roach.
Just to express gratitude and happiness that we've switched that policy, because that bothered me at graduation before. There's really no reason to distinguish between graduates based on gender. It just doesn't make any sense, and it actually detracts from having a really consistent set of graduates out there anyway. It was very archaic, and it was about as useless as having separate boys and girls entrances to the school. So I'm glad to see it going away. Thank you.
Sorry, I was going to say, I hope we attend to that policy too. So anyway, thank you. That's excellent. So if we're done with this, we're moving on to our discussion of middle school configuration. Mr. Hogan, are you doing any? It says presentation. So, Mr. Lesko. Yes, that's right. It's transportation. And Ms. Town.
Did I turn? That's on. So thank you. We are following up on the board's guidance to us in April, following receipt of the feasibility study to take a look at the elementary transportation scenarios for each of the 7 options that the board is currently reviewing in the middle school configuration process. That's the work that, let me first introduce my sidekick here. Denise Town is our Director of Transportation, as you know, and Denise did the work of reviewing all of the data and comparing where we are now with transportation for our students, our elementary students that would be impacted, and what the impact would be for elementary schools in all the 7 scenarios. So I'm going to turn it over to Denise to walk through those options that she's providing.
Good evening. So Ron sent everybody the breakdown of the different scenarios and the impact that it would have. To come to those numbers, we very simply, with our routing software, we have all the student data in there. We just shifted the school the students were assigned to fit our criteria, whether it was North Albany, Edmond O'Neill, Arbor Hill, and then from there did a very simple very simple sort through the students. So if you were more than 1.5 miles, you obviously are a busser. If less than 1.5 miles, you are a walker. We tried to keep the special needs students numbers the same, anticipating that if you're currently a special needs student in Arbor Hill and everybody gets shifted to North Albany, then your program would also shift. So that would be the only number that didn't necessarily apply to the 1.5 miles. Sure. So with option A, D, E, and G, we had a total of 681 combined students that would, all of North Albany students and all of Arbor Hill students attending Arbor Hill. And we figured that we would have about 300 eligible bus riders. So if you take an average of 60 students for a large, that could ride a large bus, that would give us a total of about 14 routes. This year, between the two schools, we have a total of 20 routes. So that would be a reduction of 6 routes for about $450,000 reduction. Option B would be to move all students from Arbor Hill and North Albany, have them attend O'Neill Middle School. That gave us a total of 13 routes, a reduction of 7 from this year, for savings of about $525,000. Option C would be all Arbor Hill students attending North Albany. We would need a total of 15 routes at that point with a reduction of 5, a total savings of about $375,000. And then option F, it's in 2 pieces up there. So all Arbor Hill elementary students attend O'Neill. My assumption was then North Albany would stay at North Albany, but I wasn't sure, so we would need a total of 9 routes with that. 9 routes for Arbor Hill students attending O'Neill, 9 routes for North Albany students, a reduction of 2 routes, so $150,000.
So we're gonna go to questions now, but remember we have 3 parts to this discussion. This part of the discussion is the bus and transportation, not anything else, just to sort of coordinate off, because other people will sit there to answer the other questions for you. This is bus and transportation. So we'll start, since Ms. Roach is not there, we'll start with Ms. Wilson. Any questions? Come back to you, sure. Dr. Chatur. Ms. Lang?
Okay, so my concern has been the industrial park. I have said that from the beginning. So I guess I am going to ask if the conversation has been talked about moving the 1.5 to 1 mile. As you know, we passed our policy, and I understand the state regulations, and I understand that we would have to bring that up for a referendum, and I also understand that it would have to pass, and that we would have to pay for those extra funds. So I do just want to throw out that I understand the process. So I guess what I would like to do is know, should transportation and moving 1.5 to 1 mile or 0.5 be part of the cost of how our reconfiguration committee does? I don't feel comfortable with really anyone walking through the industrial park. Mothers with their children, middle schoolers. So I'd like to really talk about if this board also agrees of investigating what would have to happen to either get us down to 1 mile or 0.5, what the costs are, and how we do that.
Ms. Smith. Ms. Savage?
2 points. One, I agree with Jen that I'd like to investigate that. I think the cost is going to be knock your socks off high, but I think we should know what it really is so that we're making a decision based on actual facts, because many suburban schools have a much smaller busing radius than we do, and our students are walking longer. And in some cases, that's fine, because a walk in a city block is much safer and more enjoyable than a walk on a very busy rural road. So I'm not sure we have to be at a 0.5, but I would like to at least understand what the cost implications would be, because I also believe it affects attendance rather markedly, especially in the poor weather. So I would like to support Ms. Lang's desire to actually do that study under some time frame to be worked out with the superintendent about what it would really take to do that. But I do think it is something that's worthy of investigation, and then and only then can we decide whether we can put a referendum up and whether it would make sense to do that. As a second part of that, I know that Jen knows, because she was on the policy committee with me, that we do have, and I hope that we will investigate this possible county decided based on the state law, which requires the county make the decision about whether it could be defined as a child safety zone. And I would hope that the district could investigate that. There's a process, it's in our policy, which is why I'm familiar with it, but there is a process for trying to get the county to implement the decision that an area is a child safety zone. And that might solve at least this limited problem, but it wouldn't solve the larger issue for the district. And then my question is, and I think I know the answer, I was surprised by these results because I think all of us expected that when we looked at comparing busing from Arbor Hill, when we took children out of Arbor Hill, we would have expected for those options to show dramatic increases in busing because we know that a lot of those kids walk. But I think I understand that it has to do with how long children walk, and so that's not really shown here, but that's really what's sort of being masked here is that the walkers in some of these scenarios, even though we save money on reducing busing, the walks are longer. So instead of walking to Arbor Hill, you're walking to North Albany. So now you're walking 1.4 instead of 0.2. Is that right?
That is right. Arbor Hill Elementary School and North Albany Academy are about 1.3 miles apart. So the majority of North Albany's enrollment zone falls within Arbor Hills, based on transportation, would fall within the 1.5 mile zone. So the majority of those students who currently walk to North Albany Academy, just based on the 1.5 mile regulation that we're constrained by at the moment, would also walk to elementary school at Arbor Hill. But a student who has a 0.2 walk to North Albany Academy would have a 1.3 mile walk, let's say, and we're talking about a sixth grader walking through those parts of towns, or a 6-year-old. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Ms. Roach.
Thanks for the presentation. It was in fact interesting. I wonder, there's probably not a way to tell what the average walk is or would be. That's probably too much number crunching, I think. Yes, what an average walk. I'm actually just saying I'm using that's probably too much other than a general statement. But also,
did you want Ms. Town to not to give you the average walk numbers conclusion, but to tell you if it's something that's difficult or
that's
what's
what
involved?
I'm trying to say. Is that
Okay,
something
do you want an answer?
Is that data? Yes, that would be good.
Is it on? So in anticipating there would be questions, I saved all of the different scenarios. So it should be relatively easy to come up with your answers.
Thank you very much. So at the conclusion of this, these are the kinds of questions that we will ask, get answers to, and possibly, since we post things on board docs anyway, to the extent that these are numbers and data, we will look at posting that information as well and consider that. Going back around again, Mr. Honeywell.
And this may have been implied in Ann's and Jen's request. If you change the transportation limits for the city, it has to be for the entire district, not just, okay. Whereas the child safety zone is a site-specific, okay.
Thank you so much. Did you? Yeah. Do you? We'll go back around. He'll still be here, and you can ask him definitely. Ms. Wilson.
Thank you for the presentation. Another question I have is maybe overlapping or some kind of cross-referencing with the options of this data, because it's really more or less what the entire decision hinges upon is, of course, inclement weather and children walking, especially elementary age. So is that something that could be done?
Could you tell us a little bit more about that request?
So the options that you've indicated, the riders versus walkers and everything, you indicate option F. Can you overlap it with the existing? Oh, it is over.
Where it says option F in table 5, that means option F from the feasibility study.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Chatur. Ms. Lang. Ms. Roach.
No additional questions, thanks.
Ms. Smith, do you have a question? Ms. Savage. So that we're done with this part, and I think that even though everybody didn't speak about it, I certainly support what Jen and Ann had asked about, having that information. So I'm assuming most of the people on the board, you had your fingers up, you agree, or you have a question or clarification? Okay, so Ms. Smith.
Ms. Smith has yielded her time to Mr. Honeywell. I don't know. Back to the child safety zone, and I'll get some more details on this. Ultimately, the decision is made by the board, but there is a process involving coordinating with the county and the Department of Transportation.
So I'm going to ask you to consult with your illustrious colleague, Mr. Alloy, who told me the exact opposite thing
Well, that's
many,
very-
many times in policy committee. So could you?
You get two
that's-
lawyers in a room, you get two different
Exactly.
decisions.
Well, I'd like you guys to come up with a consolidated opinion and then share it with me so that I can count on it.
We will do so.
But I do like your answer better.
Well, then put some money on my answer, okay? Thanks.
Mr. Honeywell, before you take the mic back, or remove the mic, my only question would be, if it's a decision we make, who ultimately pays?
Oh, the district pays.
Yeah, that's actually a separate question about the transportation money. Unless Bill's going to give me a different answer today than he has in the past, which would be another surprise, the state transportation law says if it's under 1.5, even if you've passed a referendum with your voters, the district pays 100% and there's no state reimbursement for that.
So then I have to then ask because I didn't have a question before, I'm a little confused on the zone issue. If we get to make the decision on it and we have to pay, in what way is anybody else involved? Does that allow us to carve out one part of the district?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
so we do not have to provide, like in New Scotland or Montessori, under 1.5?
We would have to provide why those children needed a bus to cross that
And that we don't have to then do it for
zone.
the rest.
And so if we were able to get the
Okay.
industrial zone.
Oh, got it. It allows us to not have to
The best
take
way
that.
to think of it,
Yeah, I
Sue,
got it.
is that a child safety zone is an exception to the requirement that you treat all like children similar.
And it's a specific
Bingo.
it's a specific geography
Right, that I-
defined on
terrific.
specific rules in the law. I'm sorry, Ellen, I see
Okay,
your
everybody's
hand.
gonna-
And we also have them currently in Albany.
Great, no, that's excellent. Thank you so much. Ms. Roach?
I just had a question because I was Googling it quickly. The education law section says something about a public referendum if busing students within the zone would cost us money. Would we have to put the designation of this type of a zone to a public referendum? The law
Okay,
says
so we need to talk into our microphones if we're answering. It is the second meeting, so we can talk among ourselves. No, we can. That's always the difference, but please.
Ellen, we currently have children in a safety zone right now in our district that got the approval or the exception from the county for them to get the bus.
Okay, yeah, that's why I was confused. That's why I was asking Jeff. I was confused.
Okay, thank you, Ron. Thank you, Denise. And we will continue to get more information from you as this goes on. Superintendent Adams, or I'm not sure, is it you doing the presentation on the community meetings? Or is it Bill or Ron or somebody else? The second thing is not the second thing community? The second part is community meeting update. Who is doing that? Okay, so that was in your initial report? Okay,
That was in
so-
my superintendent's report.
Okay, then we
yes.
are not going to repeat that, and we are now up to the discussion. So we don't have a presentation on this part, and so what I'll just lay out is that this is a suggestion that I'm going to make as the chair of the meeting. And that is that everybody, as we go around, as we always do, is free to comment on anything they want for purposes of middle school configuration. One goal I think we should have for how we end up this evening to move forward is to see whether of the A through G options, which we did to be comprehensive, to be able to answer all questions about did you look at all the buildings and all the options, can be answered yes. That what we try to do is see if there is an agreement among the board members that there are some of those options that we are going to take off the table now, having first brought them up in the beginning, explored them in all the various configurations and the various issues they raise, whether it's transportation or cost or staffing cost or size. So with that said, I'm going to go around, but if one of the things you could consider is if you've come to some idea about which options are ones that you don't think we should be considering at this point, and or, phrased a different way, there are options that you could not support because of whatever reasons, then please share that as well. So I'll start with Ms. Roach this time. I started with Ms. Wilson before.
Actually, if you could come back to me, I'm still trying to find.
I'll start with Ms.
can
Wilson, unless
let
you want me to
finish?
pass. Also,
I'm
I'm
still
more-
trying to find the document with all the options.
It's April's, let me give you the
10th,
date, April 12th.
Thanks.
Ms. Wilson?
Yeah, but I'll just pull it.
I never particularly found G favorable because I felt like it put it at the threshold of exactly where we began, which is being a little tight, although the costs were the least.
Other than D, are there?
No, G, it was G.
I mean, G, other
Oh.
than G, or is that the only one right now?
For now.
Okay, Dr. Chator. And I wasn't limiting you to those at all, just anything else, but as part of that, that's all.
No, I mean, in considering this, I mean, the way I'm thinking about it, we need the capacity, right? So any option that doesn't have the capacity is, even if it's cheaper, whatever it is, it doesn't solve the problem, right? So that basically leaves us without E and F. Because E and F have only 2,050 students, so they don't meet the capacity that we need. Now, we need to balance cost, we need to balance equity, and we've had these discussions before, so from a lot of the discussions that we've had, Arbor Hill as an elementary school seems to be a favorable one. Of course, we still have to deal with the transportation issue, and we've talked about that before, so if we can figure out a way to do that, that's possible. So if options B, C, and F, well, F is already out. B and F really require Arbor Hill to be a middle school. So those are out, in my opinion. That leaves me with A, D, and G. D and G basically are close to meeting capacity. D is better than G. That's as far as I've come. What I would like to happen is, I mean, we talk about Edmund O'Neill as a middle school, and we talked about it not having the green space and all of those things. So if there is a way to provide that space that is required, then that will meet what we are trying to do here.
Ms. Roach, bless you.
So I agree with Dr. Chator for some of the logic that he's stating, that I think that E and F are definitely out for me because they don't they really don't allow for the capacity. And G, G's a hard, hold on. G's a hard one to think about because it is really cutting it very close. I think for the reasons that our community members have stated, as well as the expense, I think any option that doesn't involve keeping Arbor Hill as an elementary school is impractical and also disrespectful to the community. I think that that's not something we can consider. So we're down to options A, D, and G. I think the other ones, at this point, I would consider scrapping.
Thank you. Ms. Smith?
Yes, I agree a bit with Dr. Chatur and certainly with Ms. Roach. I was looking first cut to not consider any option that had Arbor Hill Elementary School as a middle school. So I am down to A, D, and I have a question mark around G.
Ms. Savage?
So I have a couple of factual questions. Some are minor and some are major. The first one is for Mr. Peckham, I think. In the other program options summary, the very bottom, this is page 5 of the last presentation, it says option E, no additional work. And then it says option G, no additional work. But when I look across on option G, it looks like it says NA in 3 columns. So I think those words, no additional work, are actually an error, and it should just say option G. And I wondered if somebody could confirm my clarification on that.
And whoever's going to clarify that, if you can do it, could you come to the table and speak in the mic so it gets recorded? But if you can't answer it, then we can get a written response.
And while you're digging to find your, I can show you the document. You don't have to find that other one. You can just look at my copy. That'd probably be faster. Oh, technology. Oh, glasses.
Okay, I understand what the question is. What we're looking at is the other part of this, after we get through the decision on where we're putting the middle schools and the combined elementary school, what are the other ripple effects that have to be accommodated in other buildings in the district? And basically what the NA on option G, what that's saying is that we have lettered options for the schools, and then we have numbered options for the ancillary programs that need to be accommodated. So the NA is saying that for option G, options 3, 4, and 5 aren't applicable to those options for the schools. So, in this case, what it's saying is...
I understand. For option 1 and option 2, there'd be no additional work, and for option 3, 4, and 5, there's just not applicable. That's what you were trying to say? Correct. Got it. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I go too fast? Option G, it says no additional work there. And I think, and now Mr. Peckham has my sheet, but I think that it means that for option 1 and option A and B, are you good? She's good. Okay. My second question is a question I raised before, but I really feel that I need to raise it again, which is I would like us to have a conversation with the demographer about why they predicted a significant increase in middle school students for next year. This is not like 6 years from now, 5 years from now. Next year, they are predicting 132 additional middle school students. When I look at 5, 6, and 7 this year, our 5th, 6th, and 7th graders, and I kind of just move them forward, the cohort, that would increase our cohort by 50 some odd students, leaving 74 students who just materialize out of not from our pre-existing cohorts, and I need to understand why, because 74 students is a lot of students in our context, and it's next year. And so if that 74 students is real, that has real consequences. And if that 74 students is not real, that has consequences spilling forward. So I kind of hinted at that. Ron has his hand raised.
You have to come to the microphone.
If you could come to the mic.
One of the reasons for that, and without the numbers immediately in front of me, I can't tell you exactly what it is, but it's somewhere in the neighborhood of that difference that you just described, is Brighter Choice expanded to 5th grade a few years ago, so Brighter Choice now ends at 5th grade, and so those students, essentially there's no additional middle school capacity, so the majority of those students will be moving
Brighter
up.
Choice students who would be expected to come to...
Right.
Interesting.
There's no additional charter middle school capacity for those students, so the majority of those students would, conceivably enroll in public schools.
Okay, that is extremely helpful. All right, so I think I had one other factual question, which is, can I keep going, or you want me to stop? I can.
No, I didn't mean that. Sure, no, I mean definitely.
Okay.
It's the second
Okay.
meeting. We're more fluid.
All right.
More questions.
So G, let me see if I can phrase this right. Option G, Mr. Peckham knows I'm talking to him.
I was going to suggest that to whomever you think the question is directed, let them know so that they are paying attention more.
Option G, see if I phrase this right, has very low construction costs because we're not building on it North Albany, right? But it has a 375 at O'Neill, right? But we've already built O'Neill out to 500 or maybe 600, right?
The capacity to O'Neill, we have capacity there for that number of students. I think when you talk to the administration there, that even at 500, they feel that building is very tight. So
okay, I hear you.
It's an
but
educational decision, yes.
The number is clearly more than 375, since we already have 400 some odd there right now, right?
Wasn't some of the decision, though, to say 375 or 650 because of the economies of team teaching, that it's not very efficient to have, at 375 you have 1 team per grade, at 650 you have 2 teams per grade?
I totally agree with that. I'm just looking at option G, and I'm not necessarily loving option G. I'm just trying to decide whether it should be taken off the table or not, because option G meets our capacity projections, but it gives us almost no room for error. But in fact, I think there is room for error because that 375 could, in a pinch, if the projections are wrong, go up to 500 with no additional construction costs. And I'm trying to validate if I'm correct about that.
So before you speak, I just wanted to to remind you that when we've talked about where O'Neill is this year, and I'm looking at the superintendent now, and where O'Neill would be next year with an additional depth of a team, could you remind us, because I think the answer to that question, in a sense, supports what Anne is saying, because we are moving from the smaller capacity into a larger capacity as of next year.
We are adding 2 levels, 2 teams for our 7th grade. They're going to move up, and then also for the 8th grade. So we've got to make sure that we have enough space, and we do have enough for that. But it's still going to push us.
But do you know what the numbers are for next year?
Right now,
approximately?
we're at 440, and do we have those numbers? 80 additional.
So we're at 440 now.
So we're going to be pretty close to the 500.
Right. Okay. So with that information, I'm in the same place as everyone else. I think I'm ready to eliminate C, B, and F on the grounds that we want to keep Arbor Hill as an elementary school. I am definitely ready to keep D. And if you keep D, you really kind of got to keep A because D and A are the same exact construction. It's just a staffing question. So D is A, and I actually like D because it gives us that built-in flexibility to grow to A. I'm not quite ready to get rid of G with the answer to that question because I think it meets the minimum criteria of being a solution that accommodates the necessary students if we need to. It's also very low cost. I have grave concerns about G. I am not necessarily a proponent of it, but I'm not quite ready to take it off. And I want to just keep E a little bit in the mix. I'm not quite ready to throw E off. And my question there is, E is the one surviving 3-school option. And I talked a little bit about this with Mr. Peckham after the meeting at North Albany, but there are costs to having 4 middle schools versus 3 middle schools that you can't really see the way this data is presented because this data is presented based on different numbers of students. But there's clearly, if you have 4 middle school, you have an extra principal, you have an extra set of custodials, you have an extra electric bill, you have an extra everything. So I have to believe that E, if it were large enough, could be less expensive on an operating basis, not construction, but on an operating basis. And so I'm wondering if staff has any sense, and you guys are talking, and I can't even think when I'm hearing people talk across me, but if E, which is a 3-school option, is there any way to build additional flexibility into our system, either by increasing a specialty program or somehow building, because E basically does work if our projections are on the low end, but it starts to not work. It's very, very tight. So I guess I'm seeking the question of whether there's any way to build additional capacity in so that we could keep a 3-school option on our list, because for operating costs, it's going to be less expensive.
So I'm going to go to Ms. Lang now, and I'm going to have you just wait because I think that Ms. Savage isn't alone in a desire to find that answer out and also to have people speak to that, because for some people E is off the table, but there may be board members for whom E is not off the table because everyone's not spoken. But we'll come back, Ms. Roach. Ms. Lang.
So I think that E is my option, and I wanted to talk about the specialties with the AIC and the TC, especially with CR 154 coming on, and I just confirmed 95% that if we do have the 15%, 20% of a Spanish or of a language across a grade, we do have to have an extra class, and I think right now we do have some of those numbers and some of those languages. I don't like having 4 middle schools. I think there's always going to be the smaller one that's inequitable, and I would like to see option E, stay on the table for sure, and that's where I'm at.
So I'll weigh in now, and then I'll go back around again and start with you. So my perfect one, but not as configured in the sense of the numbers, is E. And the reason is that I like 3 middle schools. I actually, back in the days of the former person who was involved in the rebuild and configuration, Mr. Hendricks, never liked 4, but I also didn't like him for another reason, which is enrollment patterns become even more difficult in a district also in our district, but in many other districts, when you go to 4 rather than 3 in the way our district sort of looks now in proficiency and otherwise. And 3 is, the reason why you don't have 2 high schools is because there's a good one and a bad one. So to me, 3 is always a better option. We only have 1, which is helpful. 2 isn't very good. And then when you go from 3 to 4, I think you kind of take a step backwards. So actually, the reason I want to keep E is for the same reasons Ann articulated and Jen, and there may be others who feel that way. And if the answer, there's a brick wall and we can't do it, I get that. But for equity, for enrollment in equity, for programs in equity, for everything involving equity, I really wish that were the way to go. So that is my pie in the sky choice. And for purposes of the rest of the discussion, it was really, for me, it's D and G. I think A is too much room. I think D is enough space that there's room to grow, unless I can't rely on the demographic studies, and then I don't know where we are if we can't do that. Seriously, it's just total head shaking. So for me, it's really D and G, but I'm not militantly wanting A off the table. I understand people's desires to have them, because it's like D, just with more space. There's no additional construction for that, so, but even without that, for me, it's just additional, or I see you just have the extra space. Oh, it's just a now I know what you mean by A is like D, but it just is kind of, we could remove the number and just say, but we have extra space to grow. I see, so the goal would be to keep it at a different number, but, okay. So, again, that's fabulous. So, E is my choice, and then G, my problem with G is it just is too close a call. It just appears as if it's not a wise decision, and so in a sense I'm changing my mind. So I'm keeping E. I do not think that in good conscience I could vote for G, because it looks like it's really no foresight to do that, and allows for no variance whatsoever. So it's more of an A and D versus an E. If we have to go to 4 middle schools and we can't find room on E, I would go A and D. Thank you. So, Ms. Roach.
Can I ask you a quick question, sir?
Yes.
With regards to E, you mean to say that E, if you can increase the capacity of E, right?
Right.
'Cause
If
you
E
can't
doesn't mean that we have to take crowbars and shove our kids into like a room that has no space and teachers don't have an outrageous number of students as a result of not having adequate space to have extra classrooms to house those students.
Because if G is too close, E is not
Oh,
able
no, I understand that, and that's the problem. E, only if it can, only if there's some way of creating a 3rd middle school. And I understand if actually the answer is we can't do it. But if someone says, for example, well, we could build this other thing and it allows for that extra space. The problem really isn't North Albany with the 650. The problem is the 2 buildings, I see it as already built, because you could do 650, 650, and 650, and your newly created middle school, you can say, let's kind of put a little extra cushion in there. Let's put like an extra couple of classrooms, and so you get them somehow into North Albany, but what do you do about Myers and Hackett? So if the plan could be, again, it's close enough to 650, if you're able to create 3 more classrooms in North Albany, and it becomes slightly larger than Hackett and Myers, but keeps us at 3, then is that a way of doing it? So that's what I meant. I know we can't do anything about Myers and Hackett. We're not going to start building onto those buildings and construct at North Albany also. That would be kind of crazy. Yeah, astronomical and kind of crazy. So Ellen, sorry.
Let me.
One second. Ellen, sorry.
I'm trying to remember what I was going to say, so please let Ms. Adams speak.
I do have some information on Ms. Savage's question. The staffing cost, we did look at staffing models, and these are models, so actual results I'm sure would be slightly different, but essentially the per student cost for all the staff in the building is basically the same per student at 375 students versus 650 students, accounting for the additional staff. Where it gets very expensive is at 500, because essentially a 500 building requires almost the same staff as a 650 building. So the other part of your comment was about, well, it's probably generally cheaper to run 3 buildings as opposed to 4. You know, there's still going to be a average utility cost per square foot, but If you have to do a roof job and maintain that's a separate job. Smaller projects cost more. So there's some additional cost probably in there.
I think I'd like to know a little more about the timing that we've got, because what I'm thinking is, and I think Ms. Adler and Ms. Lang really turned me on to option E, which I just initially dismissed out of hand because I saw numbers in red underneath it. I can understand the equity advantages to having 3 equal-sized middle schools, but I can't vote for option E as is because it literally doesn't have enough space. So I think I'm asking, can we go back and say, is there a way to tweak E to build on the roof or expand or do whatever? But on the other hand, given that that peak enrollment is going to be very soon, I believe it's 21, 22, maybe 22, 23, we may not have time to go spend all this time doing more studies or asking CS-Arch to find yet an 8th option to this. Because I also think with option G, I'm really tempted by option G because it comes close to meeting our capacity, especially if that, and I'd have to go back and look at the demographic study. If that peak is very temporary, G might be feasible. I think I want to have CS-Arch look more at E to see if we can make the 3 buildings bigger, and then all of us look at G, the demographics, to see how long-lasting this enrollment boom is going to be. That's my thought. But right now, if I had to make a decision today, I would choose D, as in dog.
Ms. Wilson. Dr. Chator. Ms. Lang. Ms. Smith.
Only to say that I would entertain E there as well. I mean, I realized, like I was going, yes, no, crossing it out, circling it. So I don't have a problem looking into that with to answer some of the questions that we have.
Ms. Savage.
I wanted to go along with what Ellen said about looking for engineering solutions to the capacity for a 3-school solution, to add a programmatic question about that. Is there a programmatic solution which brings some of the students out of the general middle school population more? And we already have 60 students at the AIC and 40 students at TCCE. I think I've got that right and I didn't reverse it. But is there a programmatic solution that says maybe we need more students, a few more of our middle school students in more nurturing community or something, so that it would have some reduction in the gen ed middle school? And I don't know if that's possible or not, but that's my question. Is there a programmatic solution to be considered as well as an engineering solution?
Can I ask you a quick? I'm sorry. Did you?
This is the workshop where we can go back and forth. Is it? I think I like the idea of a small, like a lab school type middle school for middle school students, but I'm concerned about the idea of buildings driving program.
Yeah, and that's why mine is a question for the staff. Is there a programmatic solution? And if there's not, there's not. But I do think it's a question we should ask.
Can I clarify? Are you asking with that question whether going to the 4th middle school and having that 4th middle school for being sort of different programming as being sort of an underlying basis for doing it? So you're going to, in terms of the 4th?
I'm actually really not asking a specific question. I'm asking staff who know much more than I about programmatic options to think creatively about whether there is a programmatic solution. I mean, we know we're already keeping some of our middle schoolers in a different program, right? We have some of them in the AIC for language reasons. Maybe that number is going to increase, as Jen was saying, that because of Part 154, we're going to end up with more students because right now we've assumed a consistent number of students at the AIC. Maybe if you look programmatically, we would anticipate that number might go up a little bit. Or maybe there is an interest in the ALC redesign in providing some other alternatives for middle school students that might, again, just create some more capacity in our system. But I am concerned about E, that it puts us very close, if you believe the demographics, which is why I was hoping that there was a solution.
So now that we've gone around a couple of times, I thought we could interrupt and then turn to you, Rich, and find out, given that we're talking about whether E is viable or not, and a number of board members have weighed in now. We've gone at least once through, and that has been commented on. Is there any flexibility for a 3 middle school option where, when you're building the 3rd middle school, meaning North Albany as opposed to using Edmund O'Neill, but using North Albany as a 3rd middle school, whether there's any ability to add space to that beyond the 650 capacity?
From an architectural and construction standpoint, I'm sure we can come up with a solution to add some additional space. In my mind, it's really a programmatic question for the school district on whether they want more than 650 students in a middle school.
Well, that's really helpful, because that at least narrows what the focus is on our questions about it. So I'll now turn this way. So I understand also, if Superintendent, if this is not something you can answer on the fly right now, but given that the conversation that the board's been talking about is about equity and the feeling that is there more equity when one, and both in programs as well as in an enrollment feeder pattern, easier or better for a 3-person school, and what that does in terms of if one of those schools, to give that extra space, is beyond 650. So you're talking, I don't even know what the number would be, 725 or 700. If you could either speak to that now or later.
I will speak to it partially, and then we will put it on the agenda for Cabinet to discuss. But just kind of thinking about it philosophically, 650, we see where our schools are right now, and we see what we deal with in terms of offering the programs. We are in the process of making sure that we have equity in the programming piece with our 3 middle schools that exist now. Our principals have been working along with Ms. McKenna to develop that so that instructionally we are in alignment across the board. That has been extensive work. When you look at just social and emotionally, with in the upwards of 700 to 800 middle school students in one building, it absolutely raises an eyebrow. And being a former middle level principal, it kind of makes the hair stand up on the back of my neck with that many middle school students in one building, regardless of the number of adults that you may have and the number of teams that we may have, and looking at the equity of instruction and programming, the sheer number of bodies at the middle school level becomes a challenge. So educationally, we would not advise that. However, we are absolutely more than willing to look at what type of program options we might be able to do should the numbers need to go that high. But know that I feel very confident and comfortable speaking on behalf of Cabinet with that increase in numbers, looking at 700 to almost 800 middle schoolers. That is not a recommended number from Cabinet to work with.
Ms. Savage.
I guess, I think Mrs. Adler and I are in a slightly different place about this. She asked about making North Albany quite a bit bigger to accommodate the additional capacity. When I'm looking at this, option E right now, in some years has this 20 student overcapacity, and in one year, I have to look to see how many years it has almost 100 students, 94 students under capacity. That 100 students could be 10 additional students at the AIC, and 25 additional students at each, so that you're talking about 3 schools of 675. You're not talking about a 750 or an 800. You're talking about 3 schools of 675 and a couple of extra students at the AIC or at TCCE. So I don't necessarily agree, although I understand what Mrs. Adler was saying, that I would recommend 1 larger and 2 the same. I was thinking all 3. And remember, these are projections. We don't know if we did the demographic study 2 years from now, which I assume we will, these numbers could go up or down. So it's really hard for us to know. And that's actually my biggest concern about E, is if we're getting down to that, like, what are we going to do about this student or that student? Well, that means there's no capacity, there's no give in the system as there is in G and D, both G and D, because to me, D really is A. D is like the construction cost, and then we can always grow to A on staffing. And G, as I discussed earlier, has the built-in capacity at O'Neill. So both of them have flex built into them, whereas E, unless we come up with something really creative, is no flex.
Ms. Lang?
And I agree with Anne. I mean, when I made the suggestion of option E, I did not necessarily want 3 with 800 children, and the demographics change. Very much looking into a programmatic of the redesign of the ALC. The International Center has not been capacitated. And again, CR 154 and perhaps the dual language program, which is one class going to 8th grade, which is why I've asked for the numbers for the last year of whether or not that is successful for our students, especially our Hispanic students and those that are coming in in 3rd and 4th grade that really may not have the English skills in a middle school option. So very much interested in programmatic changes, not getting the capacity to 700 or 800.
Understood, which is why I prefaced by saying we're going to put this on the cabinet agenda to discuss that Tuesday.
Ms. Roach?
As I vacillate back and forth about option E, especially considering the staff opinion, one of the problems with option E is even as is, where the middle schools don't have enough capacity, when you look at the construction costs and you compare E and G, E gives you room for 100 fewer students and costs $10 million more. So I think if I was being attacked from the taxpayer perspective, it's maybe not a great option. If it's not good for the taxpayers and the staff are saying we don't want too big of schools, now I'm going to cross E back off in permanent ink now. It's gone. So G and D, I think, I'm thinking G and D.
So that's a great point. That's a great point. Anybody else? Ms. Wilson does not look happy to be putting her mic on.
Well, I was just contemplating my only concern is not necessarily that it's an equity issue when there's a lopsided or sort of different enrollment, is that also the uniformity was the goal in instruction. So if we don't have uniformity in the grade sizes, then how are we going to implement that? Not that we can't, I'm just considering that.
Anyone else? Ms. Savage?
I always have more questions. I don't know if you want to get these now or if you want to continue the conversation about options, but I have a couple of questions that would apply really to any of the options. They're not differentiators. And the key one for me is it's one I've mentioned before, which is if we don't do, F, which we've already, I think, all excluded, that was the only option that allowed us to have the AIC in the same site as an elementary school. And that has been, I think, a programmatic success in our district because it's allowed us to have our elementary students and the middle school students from the same family in the same site for these new coming families. And so I don't know if there's anybody who's got a great idea about whether there's a way we can make that happen. For example, would a Brooklyn be large enough to just become both the AIC and a 2 Deep elementary school? Do we care that much? The AIC and a 2 Deep elementary school, which is what we have at North Albany right now, right? That's the model we have right now, where if a family has students who are younger and they're best served, as Tom has told us multiple times, in the general population, they can go to North Albany and be in the same school building as their older siblings. I think Tabitha wanted to say something.
Ms. Wilson?
I love the concept of keeping a family together, but I believe the concern was also, then we get back to the issue of M&J O'Neill not having green space and it being elementary, because that creates M&J O'Neill as an elementary.
Oh yeah, I'm not arguing for option F. Option F to me is off the table. I'm asking, is there another option that expands, and do we care, do we think philosophically that it's important to maintain that thing, which I understand many families are taking advantage of? That's my question.
Ms. Roach?
Well, and my understanding is if you look at the sort of appendix to the options, the numbered options, is that a Brooklyn was being considered both to house the existing AIC and to add additional grades of international students aged down to 3rd grade. But I think Brooklyn has some of the same problems as O'Neill for an elementary school. It has no green space. And I remember hearing several commenters at the last meeting. There's really a perspective that it's basically like a warehouse. I think for high schoolers, that's one thing, because we have had high school classes in there very recently. We still have them, but for elementary school students, I don't think it would maybe not be appropriate to put elementary school students in at Brooklyn.
So I wanted to just weigh in on procedurally where we are and also to make a couple of suggestions. So I definitely understand the desire to make sure that all of our cascading effects are fixed in the same perfect way, but I think what we have to focus on, and so while I agree with you and I'm not happy about certain things, I think we have to focus our conversations and our decision-making, even as we're narrowing as a decision rather than voting as a decision, on what the ultimate priority right now is, and that priority has to be, what do we think the best middle school configuration is? And I know I'm suggesting that's turning blinders on, but I don't think we're ever going to get to make a decision otherwise. So that's my first suggestion. It's not any edict of it. That's just a suggestion, because I totally agree with what you're saying. And then get to that next place. That's one. The second is that I totally agree that 800 is an unworkable number in a middle school. It's just a tough population for no matter where you are. There's no one, we had this when we did grade configuration, there's no one who thinks there's a magic bullet for middle schools anywhere. That's why they were junior high schools, and then they were 7/8s, and then they were 6/7/8s, and then they were K-8s. And so it's just a population you try to get through as best you can and hope they're in like some place, and you get them into high school and get them socially and emotionally through, knowing that, you know, that's where we need to get them to and keep proficiency at a good level. And that is just the difficulty in population and why you can't have 800, but you can have an 800, you know, middle high school. So that said, we have two things we could do, because we do have other people waiting and we should move on. And that is, here's two suggestions. One is we just stop talking about this right now. And no, I don't mean, hear me out, came out funny. People listening to this afterwards can be entertained. Go back and, you know, when it's not sitting around the table right now, before the next board meeting, and actually earlier. So if there's questions that arise, you email them and we get answers. And we have stuff presented at the next board meeting about it, if that's when the agenda has it on. But that one option is go back, figure it out, let it all sort of sort out in your head, and then come back with some more definitive kind of ideas of, given that we need to figure out middle school, given what we've heard, these are just throwing it out there, these are the ones I definitely don't want on there. I'm sticking with that. And here are my 2 or 3 that I want to move forward with, or 1 maybe. So that's one option. The other is we kind of see if anybody is at that place right now, and then I take notes again, and then I'll share them out. But that's where I think we are right now. And I think one way or the other, we have to do one or both of those things, and then we need to go to the next topic. So feel free to start with Tabitha now, and then Ellen.
So I'm looking over these options, thinking about what Ann said about the International Center, and I have an idea. And it's, when you look at option D, you've got $650 at Myers, $650 at Hackett, $350 at Edmund J. O'Neill, and $500 at North Albany Academy. But option C says that Edmund J. O'Neill could also be expanded to 500. So why not do D, but do 650, 650, 500 at O'Neill, and then 350 at North Albany Academy, which 350 middle schoolers could also accommodate. Oh, I see, that's why that doesn't work, because it's not the same. Oh, yeah, okay. See, I almost got it. Sorry.
Feels like a Rubik's Cube as we're sitting here. So anyone else?
I guess I
Ms.
would
Wilson?
like,
Ms. Wilson?
Well, at the previous meetings, I indicated why I did not like, I believe it was B, C, and F. But I've opened, you know, to hearing the articulation of G and why, because we're kind of more or less marginally maybe off with the projections. We may even have lower, or we have some flexibility. I don't want to necessarily take G off the table anymore, but definitely still want to maintain the B. Let me make sure. I'm sorry, I have to scroll up. It's definitely B, definitely C, and definitely F.
Are off. Okay, yes. Great. So Ms. Savage, and then I'm going to sum up what I think what we've now all said, at least about the options coming off.
I think I was going to say what you were going to say, which is that I believe we can eliminate B, C, and F. I believe everyone wants to eliminate B, C, and F, and they can be taken off the list, right?
So, okay, so that's actually tremendous. And we're taking B, C, and F off, which leaves A and D, which are almost the same. And we're leaving E only because we're not really sure, is that something that could be 675, let's for one, just as an example of a number. And then, of course, G, which is that kind of tight situation. So we're going to say A/D because I like having 3 rather than 4 moving forward. It just makes me feel better, and my time here is limited. My next 2 meetings, I want to feel better. So with that said, A/D and G, which are for school configurations, those are the 2, the A/D and G. And then E is sort of hanging out there in the ether, understanding that no one is suggesting they balloon in size to be unsafe, unworkable, difficult in programming, and all of those. And that's something you'll discuss at Cabinet. So we're going to end the discussion now, and moving forward, we're going to at least find out from Cabinet about whether E should even be an option, and that can be something that with Bill around the table for Cabinet can be discussed in a sense with facilities people, and we can get some better sense of it moving forward. And I know, hopefully it doesn't feel to the others of you sitting around that we're not in a much better place, but it really is a much better place. This is really a difficult work, and I mean, getting to where we've narrowed it down in this way is really important, and great job. So, Ms. Savage.
I'm sorry to ask one more question when I know you're trying to change to the next topic, but my question was related to what Ellen was saying about Abrooken. I want to understand how, is there an architectural solution to Abrooken? If we were willing to spend money at Abrooken, could that building be turned into a good building? Could that site be turned into a good site? I don't know if it would be appropriate for elementary. I was never suggesting that was my desire, just as an example. But is the building architecturally possible to be opened up and made less warehousey feeling? And you don't have to answer that now, but I want that on the table because I think it's a really important thing for us to understand, because Abrooken, as people visualize it now, is not what I think of when I talk about moving a school to Abrooken. I assume that we will be investing in Abrooken and making it a nice school.
And I just want to, for clarification, is it okay with you that we put that in for consideration, but not do any work yet on it until we move a little further along? Awesome. So we're on the same page. Great. So thank you, Mr. Peckham, for sitting with us. And we are moving on to the AHS. Scott, thank you for your patience. AHS Rebuild Phase 1 update. Oh, that's right. You're staying there, Mr. Peckham. You're just sliding over.
Don't touch any of these front buttons. They have functions, so keep your thumb away.
Just okay. He knows me all too well. Okay, thank you. So I was asked to come here tonight to just give the board and constituents a quick update on what we're doing over at the high school. And I was instructed on how to use this, and I think I forget already. So just to give you a quick update of where we're at with the oil, if you remember the make-ready work we had for the high school build, the oil tanks were completely removed. The remaining, yes, ma'am.
Do you have the big thing you gave us? Is that here? I just wanted to know. The facilities? No? Okay. All right.
That should have been included in the board docs.
It's on board docs, right? I just
Okay.
wanted to tell people if they're
Yep.
following along, if they have computers, that it's on board docs.
Yes. No, that's okay. And this information that's up here is on that placemat as well as it's on board docs with some additional information, the PCO logs and stuff that we'll talk about. So the oil tanks were completely removed and are currently off-site. Most of the contaminated soil was removed from the property. The remaining contaminated materials we have to deal with when the chiller and transformer that currently serve the building are out of the way in the summertime. And for the phase 1 update, that's the big project, right? The first of the 4 phases. The removal of existing fill materials, so if you haven't been to the site recently, it's changed quite a bit. The old basketball courts, as we call it, are long gone. We've excavated almost 40,000 yards of material, so put that in a little bit of perspective. A dump truck holds about 25 yards, so that's a lot of dump trucks in and out. So we're thankful to the neighbors and the staff and everybody that's been putting up with on average about 50 dump trucks a day going in and out of there. And then we brought back in close to 9,000 yards of material because some of the bad stuff that left, we had to bring good stuff back in. We are currently working on the storm detention system, and I spoke to the board a few months ago about that and some of the challenges we've had there with coordinating that with the city, but that work is underway now, and we're in a good place with the city and that work, and that has about 5,000 tons of stone. Currently, again, a dump truck holds about 20 tons. So you can imagine the truck traffic and the coordination that we've had to work with CDTA and your district staff and all the folks, your security staff and everything to make those rounds possible every single day. And then the general contractor, we put it up here because it is actually a big milestone for us. The general contractor started, and he's done the full layout of your, what we call the Area 8 building. So we now know where the building is going to be and in time and space. So they actually started their footing and foundation preparations. So we expect concrete to be coming next week. Again, major milestones, permanent structures finally going in the ground. So one of the unforeseen conditions that we ran into was in the old storm systems of the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s was this transite pipe, which is an asbestos-containing material. So when you encounter that, there's special provisions that you have to take. You have to go to the Department of Labor. You have to ask for permission and how they want it removed. Of course, being cognizant that there's students and staff in the building, and there's these no-fly rules and Article 56. So that causes delay for our contractors. So that was probably about 2.5, 3 weeks of delay that we really couldn't do any work in the footprint of the building while we got Department of Labor, got our engineers and architects and everybody rallied around getting this pipe out of the ground. That's gone, and we're now moved away from that issue, but it is something we're trying to work with the contractors and get those weeks back, because we all have this goal of September of 19 to put students in chairs in that new addition, and every day is a day delay. So we're working through those challenges. There'll be more updates as we kind of become aware of it. So just some cool photos. This is a panoramic view of the site for those that haven't been able to make the trip out there. And as you know, you can't get back there anymore. There's site fencing everywhere. But that's the large hole in the ground is where your new building is going to go. This is where that transite pipe was. So again, I can't take the picture when it's there because I'm not authorized to do so. So I did so after it was gone. And then this is your storm detention system, that work that's ongoing where the old softball field used to be. So that's in between the Albany, what we call like the Albany Youth Soccer Field and the lower bowl field. So everybody wants to talk money, right? That's probably really why I'm here. The photos are cool. So the oil tank change orders, this was again the make-ready work. And we are currently tracking 10 change orders associated with the oil tank removal, 7 of which you guys have already seen have been executed and moved through its process, and the contractor has been paid. 2 of them are still pending, and then 1 of them is the TBD when I said we got to come back in the summertime to get rid of the remaining oil lines. That's the change order to deal with that. If you remember, we asked your permission to spend $250,000 on contaminated materials, so I thought it'd be important to give you just a quick update on that specific change order. It's included in the slide before, but I thought it'd just kind of show you where we spent that money, that it's only been dealing with the contaminated soil material. So we asked for $250,000, and we paid the contractor to date the $221,000. There's about $28,000 left in the coffer to pay for the remaining contaminated soil when we come back in the summertime. So that's the oil tanks. Then the phase 1 change orders, this has nothing to do with the oil tanks. That was kind of its own standalone project associated with phase 1. We're currently tracking 34 changes with a negative value. The reason there, the big reason is because if you look at the bottom there, we had the alternate for the fire protection of the current athletic building. And Rich and company worked very hard at working with the Department of State to get that variance approved in order for us to remove the sprinkler system from the phase 1 project, which really saves the overall project. We would have been putting work in place that we would have taken back out again as we renovated the athletic building. So it was a big win for the project. That money goes back into our contingency amounts. And so that's why you see that the numbers kind of throw the negative a little bit. So, but changes into the client, you only have a couple of them. And then with the architect, I think Rich is working on a couple of them. And then I don't have any on my desk right now. I made sure I cleared that up before I got here. And the contractor's got a dozen or so in his court that they're working on pricing, and we push back on a lot of these. So, and then nothing with the contractor for approval at this point. And then lastly is just an overall kind of budget update of where we're at. The original phase 1 estimate for us when we said, we were going to build this first phase, we estimated at about $57 million. That included an incidental budget, so that's my fee, the architect, testing, inspection, all that stuff. And then we had a construction contingency of about $2.3 million. So that, if you deduct the incidental from the construction contingency, that left us a direct work of about $47 million is what we expected the trade contractors to give us their estimates for. Fortunately for us, with the bidding market the way that it is, we came out early. Again, Rich and company worked very, very hard at getting out ahead of the other big school projects that were coming out. So we're able to come in considerably lower than our estimates. So our direct work contracts came in at $44 million. Netting us a $3.1 million savings to the project. That money goes back into the overall project budget. We don't know what the future holds. We have 3 other phases to bid. We've got a multi-year project. So these things, while now I'm under budget, I don't know what the climate looks like 5 years from now when we're going out for the last phase. So this is good for us to be under budget now to push that money back into the overall project contingency. We won't use that on phase 1 if we don't need it. It'll go into the overall project. So then what I did is I just broke down the awarded contract totals, again, that incidental budget, and then my construction contingency that was always assigned for the project. That leaves me a construction budget for phase 1 of $54 million. And my change orders to date, this is what we wrote checks for so far, was only about $85,000, leaving a direct work contingency of $2.2 million. I just put on there the potential change orders. This is stuff we kind of agree with that we're waiting to work through the process. So once those get executed and we pay those bills, we'll have $2.12 million left in our construction contingency for the overall phase 1 project. So any questions?
Ms. Wilson?
Thank you again. I had a question, and perhaps because I'm not a part of facilities, I don't know this quite yet, but how do you interface with the neighborhood? Are they going through their council member, or do they have a direct point of contact within your organization?
Yes and yes. So we did a couple community outreach events that Ward 13 and Ward 12 hosted. We did it at the high school. We spoke to the whatever members of the community showed up. And they, at that meeting, we gave them our contact information. We asked that we be their first point of contact, as we have we can fix it right then and there. If there's a concern with truck traffic, by the time they get to a ward member that may have a full-time job and it gets back to me, the information isn't very timely. And then we also put a person out on the street during those interfaces. So if you ever drive by at arrivals and dismissals, you'll see a person with a yellow vest and a hard hat that's interfacing with the CDTA traffic, folks that are trying to get to work. We're trying to be a little bit more proactive than some of the other projects so that we're there, we're present, we're out in front of it.
Is this something that's publicly noticed, like on a fence or something, the phone number or contact info? I'll tell you why. Someone had a question about the track, and I wanted to direct them, but I didn't necessarily know if the channels were directly through our high school or things of that nature. So is that something that's posted?
My personal phone number is not posted on the fence. But my company logo is, so if somebody just Google us, we do get phone calls through our main office. We typically will channel those through our main office so that they're documented, and then they'll either pass that information along to myself, and I'll get back to, so just, either contact my company directly. Most of the folks that need to get me know how to get me, so, yeah.
Dr. Jator.
I stepped out briefly, maybe I missed this. You talked about the transit pipe that was unexpected, and you said that could impact the schedule. Can you give us an idea as to how much?
Yes and no. So right now, really in this industry, with the schedule the way that it is, we're kind of a day-for-day delay. So the 2.5 weeks that delayed us is about what the schedule shows right now. We have some ideas on how to make up that time. So right now, if I had to answer, if you said I need to know how much, I'd say 3 weeks. We're 3 weeks delayed, but we have some opportunity to make up that time through resequencing, through different types of equipment. And we're looking at those options to try and gain back that time, plus a little extra because my schedule wasn't great to begin with.
Ms. Lack. Ms. Roach.
No questions, but thank you for coming and staying so late.
My pleasure.
Ms. Smith. Is it? Oh, Ms. Savage.
One big picture question and one small design question. In the budget that you just showed, we had $3.1 million. That's the overall contingency because we were under budget in terms of what the contractor's pricing was. And then you had the construction contingency, 2.3. That's two different pots of money.
That's correct.
Okay. And then my design question is, this has come up a couple times, and I'm hoping it got talked about facilities, and I just never got the report out. Did we ever resolve the gender-neutral bathroom question?
We are working those into phase 2 and/or phase 3, so they'll be in the central area of the building to accommodate gender neutral bathrooms, yes.
So there will not be gender-neutral bathrooms in each house?
Not currently designed that way.
I'm surprised to hear that. So I'm asking my fellow board colleagues who are on facilities committee to take that up again, because it was my understanding that that was something that we, the board, had expressed a desire for and that we were hoping were going to be resolved.
We will definitely bring that up. This is a surprise to me as well. I thought we were having them throughout the building. I also thought we were required by law to have them be, Mr. Honeywell, you're still here, so I'm just looking. I thought that the requirements of the law, while they didn't lay out like they have to be here and X number of feet, I thought there might be a problem if we have boys and girls bathrooms throughout the building, easily accessible to students, and then in a place that is farther off the beaten track, like towards the front of the building or in a central area, have the gender neutrals.
I'm really going to have to look to Rich because I do not believe the design standards have caught up with that yet. SED requirements is what I'm referring to.
I'm not aware of anything definitive that SED is reviewing relative to that.
Yeah.
So this isn't so much a criticism as an observation. The board, I recall discussions where the board was they asked quite a number of questions about the gender neutral bathrooms, and at various points there was not really definitive answers given, but I thought at least the import of the inquiries was that this is a board that wanted gender neutral bathrooms to be on the same par as gender specific bathrooms, and it doesn't sound like that's how the design has worked, and so we'll go back to facilities about that. Ms. Bechtel.
Yes, I just wanted to let the board know that we do have monthly committee meetings, and Scott DePhillips attends those meetings, and we raise issues that are coming up, and then in addition to those meetings, we have design meetings with particular groups. Jody Comerford and I are there for the vast majority, for the majority of time. We really have made a commitment to those meetings. So what we will do too is bring that back to that a group to discuss and talk about where that fits into the plan.
And so I know you understand it. So the on par kind of thing is the message we don't want to give is that if I'm a boy using a boy's bathroom, if I'm gender aligned, right, identified, or a girl, and then I use a girl's bathroom, that somehow it's easier for me as I'm going to from class to be able to do that, and that I have to go to a special area where the gender neutral bathrooms have been set up, that you can imagine that's not really.
The architects have been wonderful, and I know I've said that every time, and very responsive to the needs that we have. So we will have no problem bringing that back to the committee, to the group, to the architects, and
Thank you.
and figure something out.
And if there was ever, it sounded like the communication was that we don't love Tina and Rich, that's not true. So we definitely are very, very grateful for the work that's been done and the work that's been done from professional staff in the district. It may have just been a lack of clarity on our part. Who are we up to? Going back around, Ms. Wilson? I'm the last one after Ann, so Ms. Wilson?
I have my own question, but I did find a guidance from 2015 to what we're referring to, so maybe that's where that concept came from. But my question goes back to the timeline, which is there an opportunity to catch up over the summer, even though you indicated that there was, unforeseen delays?
So the simple answer is no. It's not the students that are holding me back. It's just the nature of building over 200,000 square feet in 16 months. And every time it rains, we're delayed. Every time it's been a tough year with that type of weather as well. So it's just a matter of trying to find different and unique ways. And I'll present it to facilities probably in a few weeks as some of the plans that we have.
Dr. Jator? Ms. Lang? Ms. Roach?
I just want to reiterate what people said about gender neutral bathrooms being offered on par with gender specific bathrooms.
Ms. Smith?
Sure, and I'm happy to bring this issue up at facilities. And I think maybe what I'll do is speak with Ms. Bechdel, because I don't know, I haven't heard around the table ideas about how you want that to look. I know New York City, there's some particular rules for their schools, like one gender-neutral stall in every, bathroom, something like that. But I don't know what it means for us, so I would really love to know some of those discussions.
Thank you very much. That's why I like the phrase on par, so it's not like, cordoned off in a special spot. Other than that, I have no idea architecturally what one would do, so I'm trusting that'll roll out well. Ms. Savage. So unless somebody has more questions, thank you so much. We're up to PPS reorg. Thank you.
So Ms. McKenna will come forward and discuss the PPS reorg. Or realignment.
So I don't know if it's a good thing that I'm last or a bad thing, because I'm the last presentation before we get to go home tonight. So that means it's either few questions or a lot of questions and we get out of here really late. So before I actually begin the presentation, I'd like to publicly thank the redesign team for engaging in this difficult work. And I'll talk to you a little bit about the difficult work in just a minute. And a few of the team members are actually here tonight. Karen Bechdel, Ken Chiaffi is still here. Thanks for sticking it out. Michelle Bridgewater, and I believe Sonia Flowers. I saw her here, and she's still here. So I just wanted to say thank you, and we'll start the presentation. And then you'll see the rest of the team in just a few minutes. So when we began this work, I wasn't really sure what the end recommendation would be. We had a charge, but I'm really pleased with the direction that the team went in, and happy to be presenting the plan to you tonight. If I can. Oh, okay. So I have to slide. All right, so the way that we, in order to guide the work of the redesign team, we created a clearly articulated rationale, purpose, and charge for the work that we were about to do, because we wanted to ensure that the team was really focused on the goal of the work. And sometimes when you do this kind of work, it's easy to get sidetracked and off task. So it was really important that we had this, and I'll just go over it because I think it's really important for you to understand when we get into the redesign structure. So under the current structure of pupil personnel and services and special education, they're really seen as two separate entities. However, they share staff, they share responsibilities, they have mandates under IDEA 6, they share grant resources, 611 and 619. And the two departments really need to be seen as one. So the two departments under the redesign the goal was to really redesign them and reorganize them under one umbrella of student support services. But you'll see in just a couple of minutes what the plan actually looks like. And the reason we wanted to do this was to really reduce the duplicative efforts and streamline the roles and responsibilities and supports for students and families, and also allow for staffing efficiencies with clearly defined roles and responsibilities. And one of the things that, if you're sitting in any of the meetings on a mat with PPS, special ed, ENL, or the principals, or any meeting for that matter, I'm constantly talking about the importance of clearly defined roles and responsibilities so we're not duplicating efforts. If we don't understand what the roles and responsibilities are, it makes it really difficult for staff and for families to understand. So this work is really critical to that. So in addition to having a rationale and a purpose, we also created a charge before we actually began the work. And it was to develop an organizational and reporting structure and develop a plan with the following components. And this is really important because, again, it's easily to kind of veer off and go down a side road with this work. So the first thing that we did, in addition to creating the charge and the rationale and purpose of the work, is to, one, identify the number of meetings that we needed to have in order to complete this work, and then for each meeting, it was important for us to know exactly what our focus was. So as you can see on this slide, it really lays out what we needed to accomplish at each of the meetings. So like any great plan, there's always some modifications that need to be made along the way. So while we looked at in our first couple of meetings current staffing structure specific to pupil personnel services and special ed, and looked at recommended staffing structures, I will tell you the bulk of the work that we did really fell under the recommended staffing structure. We had a lot of difficult conversations. We agreed to disagree, we debated, but in the end I think that we really came up with a really solid plan that will help to move our new student support services forward. This just shows you a snapshot of who was actually on the team. It was really important, again, that when we put this redesign team together, that it was assembled with all of the different stakeholders represented within the department. So you'll see that we not only have a couple of cabinet members. Oh, I forgot to mention Matt Petrin. He's here tonight too, and he's a part of the team. Last but not least. But we had stakeholders from PPS, from special ed, from ENL. We had all the unions represented, so Sonia Flowers representing APSU and the support services, the support staff that are in those departments, as well as Michelle Bridgewater and Laura Franz, because we really wanted to be open and transparent about the redesign, so it didn't come as a surprise when we were sitting up here presenting the plan to all of you. This just gives you a quick snapshot of the meeting time commitment. We're a little bit delayed, just to be transparent, because it was really important before we continued to work to know the direction of the superintendent and the Board of Education. So, like I said, we're a little bit behind. We need to adjust the timeline, but rest assured the work will get done and we'll meet the end date. So here's the bulk of the work. So, like I said earlier, over the course of several meetings, we looked at many models throughout New York State. We looked at urban school districts. We looked at the Big Five, and we also looked at how the New York State Education Department defined student support services. And so through looking at the many different models and a lot of debate and conversation around, what model would work best for us, the model that we're presenting to you tonight is representative of the work that we did, and it's the organizational structure that makes the most sense at least that's what we believe, for our students and families. And what this also does is it aligns the roles and the responsibilities. It aligns the responsibilities to the roles that we currently have within the district. So what I'll do is just take you through this organizational structure and talk to you a little bit about, and I've color-coded it. I know this is horrible up here to see, but hopefully you're looking at it in front of you. And the other thing that I wanted to mention too is that this model builds on the strength of the team. And what I mean by the team is the PPS department, the ENL department, and the special ed department. And we've been working on, as a team, strengthening that the PPS, special ed, and the ENL team over the last 2 years, almost through a collaborative problem-solving approach where we meet, we have regularly scheduled meetings weekly with agenda and minutes, and we're not talking about our issues or our problems in isolation of one another. We sit and we have, you know, agenda items and we problem solve together. If it's an ENL issue, PPS, special ed, and ENL are all a part of that conversation. And so it's really helped to build that team structure that this model will show you from a student support services model. So let me take you to this model. So I have to get up because I cannot see. I'll take my microphone with me. I promise I won't do a dance here or sing or anything like that. So this, what we would like to call it, is student support services. The model still would sit under me as the assistant superintendent and the work that I'm currently doing. But what this does is it keeps a director of PPS and a director of special ed, and it moves ENL, the ENL department, under the student support services model. And so when we're thinking about the alignment and what makes most sense for parents and students, when you think about student support services, ENL is a student support service. But I'm going to start over here and just kind of move down. So let me just explain the color coding a little bit. So the blue is what we already have in existence. The green is what we're shifting under the student support services model. So here, under PPS currently, we have 2 assistant directors. And remember what I said earlier is when we went through and we put this model together, we looked at the responsibilities across the 3 departments and aligned them where we thought it would best fit with, 1, the existing administrator, and 2, with the responsibilities under that administrator. So this administrator will have the elementary and secondary RTI-B, which is the behavioral piece of it. The RTI-A sits under Ms. Bechdahl currently. And in addition, they would have God, I can't even read that. I can look on the screen.
Lori, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we have blue and green on our computer. Is there a legend as to what the difference between blue and green is?
Yep, so the blue is existing. Yep, under the department, and then the green is the realignment. I thought I just said that, sorry. Sue, wake up.
Sorry.
That's
sorry.
okay.
It's late. I apologize.
Yep, nope, that's okay. And so over here we have,
Guidance
like I said,
counselors.
the RTI, and then we also have, I'm sorry, the guidance counselors, which is the green box. But what is the blue? I can't see what the blue box. Oh, and secondary social workers. So currently, the social workers and the guidance counselors currently are under Carla McDowell. And so we're shifting that to the other assistant director. And then under the other assistant director, we've actually added, are you going to increase that for me? Okay, that's better. Yep. Okay, so under the other assistant director, the attendance teachers, the court liaison, which is a new position that was in the budget for this year, will be under the other assistant director, along with the transition coordinator. That's a grant, if you remember, that is a flow-through grant through the New York State Education Department. So that transition coordinator will be under this assistant director as well. Quality assurance manager, it's an existing position. Currently in Kent Baker's office, that position will be shifted over to under the director of PPS. And then the quality assurance manager will directly supervise central registration. Moving over, the recommendation is because we're moving toward a student support model for safety and security, and to that more of a student focus. So we're recommending that the director of security and the assistant director and the hall monitors are shifted over under PPS as we have begun the work around trauma-informed, restorative practices, our diversion work, et cetera. We've been working hand in hand with Jack Rogan and his team and the school resource officers, et cetera. So the recommendation is to move the safety and security under director of PPS. In addition, the nurses and physicians, I think it's been going back and forth between Cecily and myself. The recommendation is to finally give them a home and put the nurses and the physician under PPS, which makes the most sense in the team's opinion. And then in addition, the elementary social workers and behavior specialist would fall under the director of PPS, so Carrie Canzoni. So that's the PPS side of things, but you can see all the green are shifts in where they currently are now. Shifting over to director of special ed, there's an instructional coach. We have the special education teachers and TAs. Under, we have assistant director. The reason why this is in green, I mean, if you remember, we currently have one assistant director and a CSE chairperson, Katie Magel. Our recommendation is to shift her from a CSE chair to an assistant director. There's no cost increase, it's just a title change. So that's the recommendation. And then we would, underneath the assistant director, the current CSE chair, we would have the psychologist. That's a shift because right now the psychologists are under PPS. And the psychologists are really the ones who are doing a lot of the testing and the evals for the CSE process. And then the sub-CSE chairs, of course, would fall under that assistant director. Under the other assistant director, speech would be the speech and language services and assistive technology specialist as well. And we've actually have outlined, you don't have it in the presentation, we haven't provided it to you, but it will be in the full report, what the actual responsibilities in detail will be for each of these folks listed up here. And then under the last piece of the student support services would be the director of ENL intake coordinator, the teachers, and the ENL homeschool coordinators. And of course, Mr. Giglio, as the director of ENL, has some responsibilities for AIC, but the principal in that program also is shared responsibility with me as well. So that is the redesign. Oh, the timeline. So we're looking to put this in to effective July 1. So shifting of departmental responsibilities, building the organizational capacity, and finally there are no budget impacts beyond what we've already included in the budget for 2018-19. That's it. Questions?
Thank you very, very much. Ms. Roach.
I won't do a dance.
Now would be the time to sing and dance, by the way. Ms. Roach.
You don't want to hear me sing.
So Lori, thanks for all the hard work that you put into this. How do you think, can you tell me a little more about how the changes will affect the day-to-day life of the people that work in this department? How, will it make it easier streamlining things or just provide more opportunities for collaboration?
So I think both. So the work that we did when we went through this redesign process is we had, several meetings where we talked about the responsibilities for each person, and what we found is that there was a lot of fragmentation and a lot of duplicative efforts across many of the stakeholders within those departments. And so what this has provided us with is the opportunity to look at all those responsibilities and align them to the position that made the most sense, and also to the strength of the administrator or the staff person within those departments. And then it also does provide for more of that collaborative approach, but we've been building that for the last couple of years, since last year. And I feel it's really important that we don't work in isolation, and we are collaborating with one another in order to problem solve, because I always say that there's power in numbers, and when you get the brain trust in a room, like PPS Special Ed and PPS Special Ed and ENL, we really do have a strong brain trust in that room to problem solve when it comes to student support services types of issues.
You good? Do you have a follow-up?
No.
Ms.
Mrs.
Sorry,
Adams wants to
Superintendent.
say something.
I'd like to just add to that, in that by streamlining and looking at those roles and responsibilities closely, it takes away the piece where you call 5 people with the same question, and it focuses the work into one position. And so now, from a school perspective, you're not calling 5 different people because all 5 people are contributing to that. They may collaborate about it, but from a school perspective, you have that point of contact.
Ms. Lang. I have 2 things. SROs, I was wondering if they could be in here. I know that they're in the security, but they're not mentioned.
We will list them in there. Yes, they should be under Jack Rogan, under
Thank you.
security.
Just so
Yep,
people would
yep,
say
yep.
who's,
Absolutely. Yep.
and then have the description. And second, I saw the secondary RTI, and I was wondering, is it solely the principal that runs the RTI teams, or, I know that those are teachers or social workers or whoever the principals, but are they as well being supervised, or is that simply from the principals?
So they are. So the RTI elementary and secondary are district-wide folks that we have in those positions to support the RTI teams, whether it's academic or behavioral, within the buildings. And so Karen right now has the RTI, the academic side of the RTI model, and under student support services, they have the behavioral side of it. So in the budget,
That's what the B is?
that's
is
what
that
the
the
B
RTB
is, right? Yes.
And then the RTA
A is under Karen.
is under Karen.
So it's RTI A isn't listed. Yep. Good.
Dr. Chatur. Ms. Wilson?
I just want to compliment you all. I love the work that you did, and every time Student Support Services shows up, I'm so happy. I love the direction that it's going. I had a question about central registration and what your vision of how that's incorporated into the work that we do with community engagement.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I haven't really thought about it from that perspective. But I always, when I think of central registration, I think of central registration as the face of the district, because they're the first point of contact that our families have with the district. And so we are working on central registration and working closely with them to align the work that they do with the mission and the vision of the school district. So again, I think central registration is another area that has been, I don't want to say neglected, but they really haven't had a clear direction or line of support. It's gone from an assistant superintendent to a director of PPS, and in some instances up in Kent's office. So this will really help to provide that leadership to central registration under this new model, because they'll have a direct point of contact.
And I just see, basically, this model has a very holistic approach, so I can appreciate that. And that's the one part when I mentioned central registration, I feel like that's the community-facing or parent advocate involvement aspect, so thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Ms. Lang, you'd wanted to add something?
I wanted to piggyback off of what Tabitha said. So central registration, I think you're right, it is the face, but I do think that they do need some academic and RTI, because I do have parents that don't speak, translation, and they don't know where to go, and it's, I think central registration doesn't know what to do sometimes. And then also parents coming in with special education and they've missed the deadline and they're being told just enroll in kindergarten, we'll have to do an assessment once you get into school because you were supposed to do the paperwork. And I've seen parents kind of just rush out. And so both of those things, I don't know that central registration knew how to access those people, PPS, what you're trying to do. So,
and we're working
that.
on it.
Yeah,
Yes,
no,
yes.
thank you,
You're welcome.
because all of those things has happened. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Smith. Ms. Savage?
I want to thank you as well for the hard work. It's clearly done in a way that will be very student-focused. I would just comment that the way it was explained tonight, it was very internal-oriented, but I actually think this is going to have very large impacts on the external face of the district, the way parents perceive the way PPS is working together with special ed. I expect that over the next year, as we see this happening, that parents are going to feel, and you did mention that sort of like as a part of what you said, but the mission is about students.
Absolutely.
Right? That's the mission. And the reason we're doing this is to make life better for our families and our students. And I know you all know that and believe that, but in terms of the messaging around this, I feel like if it comes up again and you have another opportunity to talk about it with members of the community, to emphasize that more, like how is that going to change the life of a special ed family, or how is it going to change the life of a family that ends up in PPS for a reason having to do with behavior, like all of those things I think are the reason for the work. And so it's excellent work, and I'm quite confident you did it with that intent. Absolutely. It just didn't really come out that way in the way it was presented.
So I wish SSS rolled off the tongue like PPS did, but I definitely love the changed name. I really do. I think it's a great title, Triple S or Student Support Services or whatever. It's easier to say fast and use all the names than to say People Personnel Services. So that's great. I just wanted to thank you very much for the presentation, which the chart, the organizational chart's wonderful. The comments you made, the superintendent made, are great. And I'm reminded of one of the first presentations you did, which Vicki introed to the board at the time with the ALC redesign. And I don't mean it to sound like I'm waxing nostalgic, but the kind of work that we get when you do a presentation, when Cecily does a presentation, when Karen does a presentation, or Kent, I feel very fortunate that the district is in the hands of the administrative team that the superintendent is leading with the team now. And to me, this is just emblematic of the work that you do. What comes out simple after all of you meet, the whole team, it has so much work underneath it and has so much clarity about the kinds of things that you're seeking to achieve. And it is very, very, beyond the respect for the work that you do on behalf of students, what I really feel is that it is student-driven, and the goals that you seek when you do it are to make the work benefit the students and actually make the work of the staff doing it, as the superintendent said in terms of the one phone call, easier, again, for the benefit of students. And removing those barriers, removing the roadblocks that get in the way. Sometimes people don't understand that this board for a few years now has talked about systems, the importance of systems. And sometimes I think when we talk about them, people think, but what about the kids? But what about the kids? And this is one of those examples that when you hear about it, and there's not many, but maybe people will listen to the recording, what you realize is that the systems are there because without them, it's chaos or things run amok, and you can't actually then just do the work that's necessary in the classroom and get it done. So thank you again. What a pleasure, even at this hour, to sit through presentations like this.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. So that concludes our meeting, because since it is a workshop and because we didn't have our first meeting of the month, we do not have committee reports nor other business. So may I get a motion to adjourn? Ms. Roach, seconded by Ms. Smith. All in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you all.